Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, am I the jerk for telling my mom no one asked you to have another kid? Background: I'm 16, male, and I have two parents. My mom's 38 and my dad's 40. I have three younger sisters who are 14, 2, and 1 due in March. I'm in high school. It's my junior year. I'm doing well and passing my classes. I have mostly A's. I'm making honor roll every year, and I'm a good kid in school. I wouldn't consider myself a lazy person either, as I work out 3 to 5 times a week. I wrestle during the winter. I clean the house 2 to 5 times a week. I don't normally socialize often outside of school, as I don't feel motivated to do so. So then I just stay inside and either play my game, read, study a language, or pray. 3 years ago, my mom and dad both worked. My mom used to work around 50 to 80 hours a week to catch up on bills. Oftentimes, she would come home tired and would sleep during the day, while my dad worked around 40 to 50 hours a week and would be tired too. Oftentimes, my mom would complain about no one doing anything around the house and calls me and my sister lazy. I usually don't say anything to those complaints, but sometimes I get irritated and say I actually clean around the house and that you only sleep, so of course you wouldn't pay attention. Moving forward a year or so, when my mom announced that she was pregnant, I was kind of irritated because she would always complain about bills and how she needed to catch up on them. I proceeded to say, "How are you going to say you need to catch up on bills, but then have another baby?" I can't remember what she had told me, but a month or two later, the reason she wanted to have another kid was because I love being a mother. In my head at the time, I kind of saw it as selfish, and she didn't want to be alone. I wanted to work over the summer and be a little bit more independent, as I'm only a few years away from being a legal adult, so I asked my mom if I can work. She says yes, but she needs to get money for an ID. The next thing you know, she never gives me my ID to work. My mom complains that I go out a lot and give my attention to my girlfriend instead of my little sister, or the things around the house, saying I don't do them well. Many times, I don't have a problem with playing or watching my sister, but at times, my mom makes it seem like I'm obligated to watch my sister anytime she's tired from work or sees that she's struggling. And she once again says she pays for everything, and all I do is ask for items just because I clean the house like I'm supposed to do. Which I feel is it isn't true, because I hardly ask for anything. One comment she said was I can walk to school. Mind you, it's the winter, and when I wanted to walk to school, she said it wasn't safe to do so. And she won't be paying my phone bill anymore, as it's her money, and have my girlfriend pay it instead. I made the comment, "When I wanted to work, you said no because I'm not ready," then started yelling at me, telling me to go to my room while slamming the door. Not the jerk. You're a good kid. Why isn't your father helping if she needs help so much? I understand expecting kids to do chores, etc., but it sounds like you're already doing that, whilst your mother, assuming you will do everything else, that you're not responsible for. Not the jerk. If your parents were struggling to take care of the 2 kids they already had, they shouldn't keep having them. Am I the jerk for not calling my wife's daughter to invite her to Christmas? I, 63, male, lost my wife, Beth, who was 60 at the time, 3 years ago. We'd been together for 30 years. When I met my wife, she was already a widow. Her first husband had passed in an accident. She had a daughter, Jane, who's 43 now, who was 6 at the time that her father passed. Jane was about 10 whenever I married Beth. When I came into Jane's life, I had no idea how to be a parent to her. I expressed my fears to Beth, and she said to just let her take the lead. I talked with Jane, and I told her that I knew I could never replace her dad, and I wasn't trying to. However, I would be willing to do all the dad stuff that her dad wasn't around to do if she wanted. I drove her to practice, attended every performance, stayed up late to help her study for math tests. I taught her how to drive and how to shoot. Shared my love of fantasy literature and Star Trek. Our relationship was always hot and cold though. While she seemed happy, I was never dad or stepdad or even Uncle Sam. I was always just Sam. Beth and I had a son, Tom, who's 32, and a daughter, Christy, who's 29. Jane has a reasonable relationship with our half-siblings considering their age difference. A year or so after Christy was born, Jane became sullen and despondent. After talking with Beth, I offered to adopt Jane. Jane did not take this well, and I never brought it up again. I was the main disciplinarian parent in our household, and while none of the kids were troublemakers, they all did things that got them grounded or their privileges with our cars taken away. I think Jane resented this as well. When Jane graduated high school, each student was able to purchase 2 tickets to the ceremony. Jane purchased 2 tickets, and I thought I would be attending. But the week of the ceremony, Beth told me that Jane wanted to use her second seat to memorialize her father. I was hurt, but I understood. She put a picture of him on the empty chair next to her mom. I think it also hurt Beth as well. Jane was an excellent student, and she got some good scholarships, and I paid the remainder of her cost to go to college. I did get to see that graduation. When Jane got married, Beth and I were not able to pay for the entirety of the wedding. We paid for about half. She had her father's younger brother walk her down the aisle. She would spend a week or 2 during the summer with her father's family. At the reception, my wife was again seated next to an empty chair to memorialize Jane's father. I was not given a seat with Beth at the family table, and honestly, I don't remember where I was supposed to be because I spent my time at the bar or standing behind Beth, who was having a very hard time. However, it was a lovely wedding, and once the dancing started and everyone was out of their seats, I stopped worrying about where I was supposed to be. When Jane had her first kid, Beth and I were overjoyed. However, I soon learned that while my wife was going to be Graham, I was not going to be Grandpa, but still just Sam. I'm Sam to both of her kids. This was again something that hurt, and when Tom had his first kid, he asked if I wanted to be Granddad or Sam to his kids, and I jumped at getting to be Grandpa. Jane ended up getting divorced about 4 years ago, shortly before Beth was diagnosed with cancer. She and her kids moved in with us, and we helped her with her lawyer until everything was finalized. During my wife's last year, Jane was with us all the time. It was a huge help to both Beth and I. After Beth passed, I was a wreck and mostly useless. It wasn't right, but Jane ended up doing most of the funeral preparation. I'm very grateful for the help she provided. When Jane's father had passed, her mother had helped with the funeral expenses and had purchased a double plot. When Jane prepared the funeral, she organized everything so that Beth would be buried next to Jane's father, her first husband. I was shocked and felt that this was done somewhat behind my back. My wife had never told me of this, and Jane assured me this was what Beth would have wanted. I talked with Tom and Christy, and they know that I intend to be cremated. Because of that, they thought that this was reasonable, and the plot was already paid for. At the memorial service, Jane was rightfully upset. She told many of the other mourners that she was now orphaned and that she and her 2 kids had no close family left. This upset Tom and Christy a lot, but I tried to explain that it was different for Jane. I talked with Jane during the memorial, and I told her that she does have a family that will welcome her if she wants it. She thanked me and was polite. I've not really talked with Jane since the memorial. The first year, I invited Jane to all of the family get-togethers just like before, even though Tom and Christy were angry with her. I left her voicemails asking how she was doing, how the kids were. However, the last couple of years I have stopped because I never get any responses. I still send her and her kids gifts for their birthdays and Christmas, I just don't actively reach out. One of the last voicemails I left, I told her all she needed to do was call and I would help her. With all that information, here's where I might be the jerk. My daughter Christy is getting married next year. She reached out to Jane in the past few months and has been working on reconciling with her. Additionally, Jane's ex lives in a different state and her kids will be gone for most of the holidays. Jane has told Christy about how alone she's feeling. Christy called me and asked me to invite Jane to my house for Christmas. Christy and her fiance will be there along with Tom and his family. I told Christy that Jane knows she is always invited. Christy says that Jane won't come if I don't call and ask her to. I told Christy that she could invite Jane or she could tell Jane to call me. Christy says I'm being the jerk for not calling Jane. I talked to my son Tom and he says he's tired of the rest of us having to beg Jane to be part of our family. I love Jane, she's my daughter, but after so much, I just feel like the only way this will work out is if she takes the first steps. So, am I the jerk for not calling my wife's daughter to invite her to Christmas? Jane, if you see this, just call. Edit. I'm astounded by all of these comments. I thought I would just get a few, but there are too many to answer them all. I do want to clear up some things though. I tried to be the best parent that I could be to Jane with Beth's help. I never wanted her to feel like our family was not also her family, or that her family had been replaced. I never felt like an ATM machine. I paid less than half of Jane's schooling because of her scholarships. I did what we could for her wedding, and yes, I was upset about the seating and who got to walk her down the aisle. But Beth reminded me it was her day, not mine. I will be paying for a larger share of Christy's wedding than I did Jane's because my financial situation is different now. But Christy has asked for some things I think her mom would have fought with her over already, but that's a story for another post. I don't think I did anything that would make Jane resent me besides marrying her mom. However, Jane has, except for a few occasions, always been polite and friendly to me. Maybe I shouldn't have put the wedding stuff in the post at all, but she did have a not father-daughter dance with me at her wedding. When Beth passed, Jane told me that her mother was amazingly lucky to have found true love twice in one lifetime. When I offered to adopt Jane, it went very badly. Beth and I had set her down and made the offer. We thought that after the birth of Christy, she was feeling left out. It backfired horribly. Jane said she didn't want my stupid name. I tried to explain that she wouldn't need to change her name, but she started screaming at me that she didn't want my stupid name, family, or anything else. Both Beth and I told her that this response was completely unacceptable, but she kept saying nasty things that teenagers say to both me and Beth. I told her that her behavior was totally unacceptable, and since her mom had lots of class and manners, that this behavior must come from her stupid father's family. Beth told me that I wasn't helping, and I left while she talked with Jane. A couple of days later, Jane asked to talk with Beth and I privately. She said she wanted to move in with her uncle. I figured this was a hollow threat from a teenager since that uncle lived 2 states away and her life and friends were all where we lived. I said something like, "Well, if that's how you feel, you and your mom work it out and I will make it happen." I then left. Jane didn't move out. I did tell her that I was glad she chose to stay with us. Our relationship did get better, but never substantially improved after that point. So I'm not a saint. I'm human. I did my best. Not the jerk, and I'd leave it. You've spent the past 35 years being the bigger person here. Understandable when she was a kid and she chose your role in her life. But as an adult, she's fine taking your money but then treating you like an outsider. If I, with my spouse, had paid for half of her wedding, but then there wasn't given a seat with my spouse or with my family, I'd have said enough. She then, when you were grieving at your most vulnerable, had your wife buried somewhere without your input. All of these actions are to hurt you and are frankly fairly despicable. You've been more than kind. It's exhausting just to read this and see how much you've done. I agree with your son. You have set yourself and your whole world on fire to keep this ungrateful jerk warm, and still left the door open. It's on her now. The only thing as an outsider I think should have been done was take Jane to therapy. Sounds like Jane wants everything her way and when she wants it. OP. Getting therapy was different in the 90s. I know Beth got her some help after her dad passed, but long-term, it was just not as available as it is now. It also would have meant taking her out of classes and activities a lot, and people told us, mostly Beth, that keeping her busy was the best thing. Update. So Christmas has come and gone. For those interested, here's the update. Most people said it was time for Jane to face the consequences of her actions. Did Jane deserve to spend Christmas alone? Perhaps, but I didn't want my girl to be alone or sad when I could do something about it. So I called and once again got sent a voicemail. I left a message saying that I didn't know what her plans were, but that she should know that she is always welcome at our house. I figured that would be it, and I could tell Christy that I tried. On Saturday, I got a call from Jane. She seemed very down. She told me the same things I had heard from Christy. Her kids would be out of state with her ex for Christmas and New Year's. She was feeling very alone. I told her she's always welcome to come celebrate with her brother and sister and myself. She said that sounded really good and she would like that. Jane, Christy, and her fiancé spent Christmas Eve with me. It was really nice. Jane was very sweet to everyone. People were so busy attacking Jane before, and my post maybe was not fair to her, but Jane can be an incredibly caring person. Jane seemed a little on edge at first, but as the evening went on, she became more at ease. We watched A Muppet Christmas Carol, just like when my kids were younger. After my phone call with Jane, I found Tom, Christy, and Jane's old stockings. There was not a lot of time, but I got some candy, a book, and a couple of gift cards for Jane, Christy, and John. On Christmas morning, all three were a bit surprised to find that they had stockings filled with goodies and called me a jerk for not telling them beforehand so they could make sure I had one too. I said I was not involved, and you can't call Santa a jerk, or you get nothing, just like me. Tom and his family came over on Christmas Day. Jane practically knows more about what's going on with Tom's kids than I do because she's very active on Facebook. Jane's gifts that she got for everyone were very thoughtful. Jane is great with kids, she's a teacher, and Tom's kids really enjoy their aunt, although they did ask where their cousins were, which made Jane a bit sad. Jane and Christy made our Christmas dinner, and seeing giggling like schoolgirls in the kitchen together reminded me of Christmas long ago when Christy was 7 or 8. Tom found me in my office. He said that Jane told him that I called her. He said that he was glad I did, that he was not sure he would have been willing or able to make the call. I told him I bet if it was his kid he would have. That's probably enough of my family Christmas. I know that the real update is the talk that I had with Jane. Tom and his family went home because his kids wanted to play with their new toys. Christy and John left to meet John's family for a late Christmas meal and get together. As Christy was leaving, she gave me a hug and told me, "Merry Christmas, Daddy." When I turned around and saw Jane, I could see dread on her face. After everyone had left, Jane asked to talk with me. We had a long conversation, and I'm going to hit the important parts. Jane said she was very thankful to be invited for Christmas. She told me that when she started dating after her divorce, because of her age, she met a lot of guys who had older kids like her own. Many didn't think trying to blend families with older kids was a good idea. I guess they figured the kids would be out of the house soon, and they had co-parenting relationships that worked for them. However, Jane has her kids pretty much all the time. A large factor in her divorce had been that her husband had a view that his job was more important than their kids' lives. She wanted to be with someone who would show her kids, especially her son, that a family is not just a thing that women care about. Apparently, as her longest relationship was spiraling, she had an argument with her boyfriend where she said something like, and remember, I'm paraphrasing a story she told me, "What's so hard about stepping up and being a good dad? My stepdad was able to do it, and he didn't have any kids of his own when he married my mom." To which said boyfriend said something like, "You mean the guy you treat like crap and your kids treat him badly too?" She says that after that fight or relationship or whatever, she kind of started thinking about our relationship, things I had done for her and that she had done as well. She told me she feels embarrassed and ashamed, that she didn't know how to even start to fix anything, and she thought Tom and Christy and I were mad at her. Jane asked me if we could have a relationship like I have with Christy and Tom. I told her that I cannot give her a replica of my relationship with Christy, that none of us can change the past. I told her that for me, nothing has changed from that afternoon at the park where I told her that I would be willing to do all the things her dad was not around to do. I will always be as much her dad as she wants. Jane was crying by this point, and I held her. She started crying harder and saying she was sorry. I told her that I know and that everything's okay. In the middle of this, something happened that I've waited a very long time to hear. The sobs of, "I'm sorry," became, "Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Well, one apology and a good cry doesn't change a person. The next morning, I was mostly back to being Sam, but there were a few dads and even one daddy sprinkled in. We'll see. Some other things I'm guessing people will want to know. We did talk about her mom's funeral. She said that she didn't mean to do anything secretive. By using the plot that was paid for, they saved on some costs and were able to get an encasement as well. The encasement should make it possible to have my cremains interred with my wife. Also, I guess a down payment has been made towards a headstone for me that can be integrated with my wife's. Finally, her youngest was apparently upset that Tom's oldest called me Grandpa all the time at the funeral and thought that it meant I liked Tom's son more than him. That was years ago now, but she said she will be bringing it up, that Grandpa Sam situation with her kids. I said I would like that. In all of this, Jane never tried to say that it was her father's brother or any of the rest of her father's family who didn't like me or made her act like she did. There was no outside influence, just a scared girl who wishes she could have done things differently. I know many people said that she wouldn't really change. I know change is very hard. Maybe after the holidays, everything will just go back to being like it was. However, even if that's what happens, I at least got one Christmas day when Jane wanted me to be her dad. Also, Jane knows that I'm posting this and said it was okay. Shout out to the former boyfriend that forced Jane to take a good look in the mirror. Today, I asked her father for his blessing to propose to her this coming weekend, and he said no. Background: we've been in a relationship for 5 years and living together for 4, and this is the best, most satisfying relationship I've had in all of my life. She works in the healthcare industry, and her kindness towards those in need and less privileged than her is what drew me to her in the first place. In the last 4 years between us, we've had some little fights, but only one big one. The fight happened in October of 2014. She planned for a lunch with Carl, which I had to miss because of work-related emergency. He called me later that night, saying that I don't show him the respect he deserves, and I'm always trying to get out of family events because I don't want to be around him. Which is not true, because half of the planning and organizing on his birthday was on me, and it was a big event. In the morning, I told my girlfriend about his call, and she brushed it off as him being drunk. The next weekend, when we met at her parents' place for dinner, Carl was extremely hostile towards me, but I kept silent about it until he said that I should not have missed the lunch. Every other Sunday is family dinner at her folks' place, and I rarely miss it, so I didn't think it was a big deal. I apologized to him and said that I would make up for it in another way. At the next dinner, I brought a bunch of smart wearable accessories for him because girlfriend was interested in them. He refused to accept the gift, and when I insisted, he walked out saying he needs some air. I had no clue what was going on, and girlfriend's mom was mortified, apologizing to me over and over for Carl's behavior. When we got home, I asked girlfriend if there was something going on which she was not telling me. At first, she tried to brush it off, but then she said that it was my fault for not seeing that her father was not interested in being buddies and wanted my respect, not friendship. This was a complete surprise to me because I never really thought of him as anything more than her father. We would just watch the game together sometimes and chat about it later, but that was the extent of our social interaction. Girlfriend said I needed to earn his respect, and I told her I had done nothing wrong. That's when the fight started. But a few days later, Carl called me and said he liked the watch and other accessories. That's his way of declaring truce, I guess. After that, I was always extra careful to not miss any events with him. Last June, girlfriend's mother passed, and it was an incredibly difficult time for everyone. I tried to be as supportive towards the whole family as I could. I cut down my work hours to spend more time with them. Girlfriend and I started cooking the family dinner at his place because she thought it would be better for him to see the house alive with people again, and we made it an every week event for just a while to spend more time with him. Multiple times, we made extra effort to host family events, and once we even flew his elder sister over for his birthday. I had thought he would warm up to me a little, but I guess I was wrong, which brings us to today. Girlfriend is away for the week on work-related stuff, so I planned the whole proposal. I was gonna decorate our apartment like a planetarium with stars and planets and write, "Will you marry me?" in the stars. It's from Friends, which she's obsessed with. I wanted to start the preparation with his blessing because that way he would feel good about me asking him first and he'd feel included also. I planned a lunch with him for today to ask for his blessing. I told him how much respect I had for him and that I wish one day I could be as good a father as he was. Then when I asked for his blessing for the marriage, he blew up. He was absolutely livid, saying that his daughter deserves a better man and that he never really liked me much and had always hoped the relationship would end. He said all the sucking up I was doing last year had shown him that I just wanted to appear like a good man to girlfriend and didn't mean any of it. I was so shocked because this is not how I expected it to go at all. I left him, still spewing, and went to one of my friends' places. Told him and his wife everything, and they're just as shocked as I am. I spent the day at their place and got home about 2 hours ago. Not sure how to proceed now or even what to do. Should I tell my girlfriend that her father said no? Should I proceed as if nothing has happened? For now, I'm drinking and playing video games. What should I do, Reddit? Update 3 years later. I'm not sure what I will get out of this. I feel like writing it all down and having a stranger over might give me some mental clarity, but I think at this point, there's no way to salvage our marriage. I've been in a relationship with my wife for almost 9 years now, married for 2. Our relationship has been, for the most part, fulfilling for both of us. It seems like I'm making a self-congratulating post, but we've become better people by virtue of being together. I'm an old-fashioned person, so it was difficult to meet a woman who liked the things that I liked and had the opinions I had. The only unsavory part of our relationship over the years has been my relationship with my father-in-law. My wife and I rarely have disagreements, so the only fights we've had were about her father. I want to be clear, I don't hate him. I respect him. He sacrificed a lot in his personal life in order to provide for his family and to make sure my wife was raised with love and care. I used to look up to him in the earlier years of our relationship. He and my mother-in-law would host the family twice every week, and it took me by surprise how close they were as a family. I really liked the events, and everything was just great. Early on in the relationship, I think I freaked out my wife by how much I enjoyed being at her parents' house. Her mother was a saint of a woman who gave me so much love from the get-go. She would always make sure I was included in family activities and often reserved a seat for me at the family dinner right next to her, talking to me like I was one of her own. The reason I bring up my mother-in-law is because I think she was the reason her husband was accepting me at the time. She passed 4 years ago, and it somehow changed him. It was like his filter was gone. He would stay in his room a lot, only come out for his errands and walks. He wouldn't watch the games with me, saying that I talked too much. He wouldn't let me fix anything at the house despite me practically living there and having done a lot of work in the house in the past. A popular theory among my friends was that he hated me because I was too close to his wife, which sounds absurd. She was a maternal figure in my life, and I can't for the life of me understand why that would upset him. She was nice to everyone. My wife is nice to everyone too, to the point of it being a fault. My mother-in-law used to say that she had 4 sons, her son, 2 husbands of my wife's sisters, and me. So it's not like I was inappropriately close with her. I've discussed this with my wife a lot too, but she's always insistent that my relationship with her mother has nothing to do with it. At the time, my wife and I started talking about marriage, and it felt right. I don't think I was ever more sure about anything than about marrying my wife at the time. There was a brief moment before the engagement where she and I got into a fight, but things worked out nicely. We got engaged in May, and it just set things in motion. My wife is the youngest in her family, so she had a lot of positive attention from her siblings. They had kept her mother's wedding accessories for her, which honestly was a nice thing to do. And slowly over the months, it became this big and happy event in our family. Winter of 2016, we got married. My wife sat me down and asked if it would be okay to move back in with her father to take care of him. I think that was the moment where I made the stupidest decision of my life when I said yes. I was blinded by love, not just for my wife, but for her family, for the mother who I missed so much, for her father who liked me but never really accepted me, and for her siblings who liked me like I was their own. I just thought about what would be best for everyone else. A month after we moved in, my father-in-law asked his son if he could come stay with him for a while. At the time, it felt like a good thing that he was moving past the grief of his wife, but I don't think that was why he visited his son. He just wanted to get out of the house because of me. A few weeks later when he got back, his passive-aggressive BS started again, but this time it was just constant nagging over small petty things. I moved the chair. No, I didn't. I broke the thermostat. No, and I changed it for good measure. I forgot to put the tools back. I messed up the library. Things like that, almost as if I'm a kid who's unwanted in this house. May 2017, we had a huge fight, and I gave my wife a choice to either live with me or live with her father. That made her have a fight with her father, and she decided she was going to move out because, in her own words, he's never going to accept you as his son. He's delusional in grief. So we moved out, but still lived close by because both our jobs were quite close. After moving out, however, it messed up the whole family dinner tradition as her father refused to come to our place for dinner. And we couldn't afford to host. Maybe you just need to cut contact with this guy. He sounds like a piece of absolute dog doo. Why are y'all still messing with the guy? Get him out of your life. Why do people deal with this kind of crap? Update. Divorce. I've been reading a lot of the relationship help books, and I try to talk to my wife many times. However, the fact is, she and I just don't work as a couple anymore. Well, gee, I wonder why. I'm no longer a priority in her life, and I'm not okay with it. So last month, I decided to talk to my lawyer and initiate divorce. It's been a really stressful time, especially from almost all of her family. But at this point, I just want to look after myself and recover myself from this relationship. Update. After our divorce, I lost a lot of family and friends. I was very involved with family on her side, and losing them all at the same time because we got divorced made things difficult for me. I'm an immigrant here, so I did not have many friends outside of my ex-wife's family. During the divorce process, the lockdown started, and that ruined all of my relationships with her side of the family. I was really lonely for a long time. I tried to go on dates, but the dating culture is so different now than 15 years ago. I could not find a person I wanted to spend more time with, but I think it was in part my fault too. And the one person who showed interest in long-term dating, she was much younger than me. I did not like her friends, and her friends were not thrilled with me either. So that relationship ended in 2021. Since then, I've stopped going on dates even, and I've lost touch with some friends and acquaintances because of lockdown. Or maybe because of age and not having a wife. Like, they're all family men now, so making time is difficult. But anyway, I saw my ex-wife a few times in the last 2 years, and we exchanged some quick words about well-being, but nothing substantial. I know she lost her father during lockdown, and I told her that I was sorry for her loss because he loved her very much. She also told me she was dating a younger man and it was going well. However, we never sat down for tea or anything. It just never happened. But 2 months ago, I got a message from her saying she wanted to meet for lunch. During this lunch, she told me her relationship of 1 year and some months was not going well, and she was thinking of breaking up with her boyfriend. She and him did not agree on kids or not having kids, and she did not see a future with him. We kept in touch through the last 2 months, and 12 days ago she broke up with him. She told me a part of the reason was that after talking to me, she remembered how it was with me when we first started dating and how it was not the same with her new boyfriend. She and I have been talking a lot in the last few weeks. Since the breakup, the first thing she does after waking up every morning is message me. And then 2 days ago, she called at 7 in the morning saying she was at my door with some food. I've been feeling ill, but I don't remember when I told her. However, she came with a lot of home-cooked food and soups, which she knows that I like. It felt like we were back in time 10 years ago. It's been a very confusing time since then. I'm not sure what I feel. I think I'm starting to love her again. She pays me so much attention, which is nice. She also keeps sending food or bringing it herself. And then last night, she spent the night because I was too ill to get up and clean after myself. Nothing happened between us, but at the same time, I think she wants to talk about us dating again. And I will admit, all the attention and food and other gestures of love and care, they're starting to feel incredible. I'm not sure who to talk to about this. I think I need to keep her away for a few days to be able to think clearly. But it has been so long since I have felt this good about myself. And a lot of our relationship problems were from how her father acted with me. So I keep thinking maybe we can try again, and this time it will be better. Any advice or anyone who wants to help me here, I would really appreciate it. Update. On Saturday, she came over to talk about our relationship and what we both wanted, what went wrong, etc. She asked to speak first, and I really should have talked first instead, but I let her say her part, and it was focused on her relationship with her whole family, how important her father was to her, how much involved everyone else was in her relationship with me. She said she was sorry for letting her family, and her father in particular, meddle in our marriage. One of the things which hurt me a lot was that she mentioned that her ex-boyfriend never wanted to be around her family and hated going to any family events or even to a simple dinner, etc. She said that's when she realized how much easier I had made things for her in our marriage. It was incredibly hurtful because I remember telling her in so many different ways and at many times, even before the passing of her mother, that I was okay with her family's involvement, but she needed to keep some distance between our relationship and her father in particular. She said one time her father said something nasty directed at her ex-boyfriend, and after that time, he refused to be in the same room as him, and I told her that he was right in doing that. I reminded her of the time when her father told me, after 5 years of our relationship, that he did not want to give me his blessing for asking you to marry. I don't know why, but hearing her say that she saw her family's behavior towards her boyfriend, and that was what helped me see how toxic they can be, it was really hurtful. Like my feelings and my protest did not matter to her as much. I told her that, and she had tears in her eyes. She said she was sorry. She said she was young and inexperienced at first, and then after her mother had passed, she was scared of losing her father, and anything I said about him was difficult for her to hear because of that. She was a very selfish person and told me it was a difficult thing for her to realize she had ignored my needs in the marriage. She said if we date again, she wants us to see a relationship counselor together, and by herself also to make our dating life better. I think it's a good idea to talk to someone who can help me explain my side of things to her. I'm not confident how helpful the conversation can be if it's just the two of us. She has a tendency to talk over me, or to agree with me, but not let me say my part. I want to talk to her about it too, but I think it's better if I wait until we have found some relationship counselor. But still, I think the outcome of the conversation was good. I want to ask her out on a date tonight, for maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. She went back to her house last night, and I missed her presence around me a lot. I don't know if that's a good sign or if it means I'm too lonely. When she was here yesterday, she got a call from one of her siblings and she mentioned me by name. I was not listening in, but I just heard her say my name, so my ears picked up on that part. I feel like that should be a good sign too. Or maybe I'm just desperate to look for anything positive as a sign. She wanted to come over today, but I told her I'm feeling much better and she doesn't need to cook for me today. Also, I spent the morning today looking through our old pictures together. It was nice to remember the person she used to be. I feel like yesterday I saw a little bit of that person in her. Am I wrong to want to start something so soon? I know I said previously that I would wait, but waiting for the sake of it seems pointless. I do want to take things slow because I want us to find a relationship counselor soon, but I'm afraid I will lose her if I show no interest. OP's ex-wife dumped her boyfriend because he was calling her out and her mostly crappy family on their toxic behavior. Then she's immediately love-bombing her ex-husband, the guy who put up with their crap near silently for years. She wants her doormat back, the one that was easy to deal with because he wasn't willing to put his foot down and just took what everybody dealt him. It's telling that she spent 2 months hitting up her ex-husband while still dating the other guy, when prior to that, they had nothing but a couple of chance encounters since the divorce. I feel like OP is letting his loneliness and isolation push him back towards a poisoned well. I wish him the best, and I suspect the best for him right now is to not jump back into a relationship that failed for unaddressed reasons. Yes, the father is gone now, but the ex-wife is still the same person who let her father break their marriage. Bro gets away from this toxic family just to fall right back into it. Why? My oldest daughter is demanding to use my younger daughter's wedding fund to buy a house. Me, 59 male, and my wife, who's 53, have two daughters who we'll call Rose and Lily. They're 27 and 24. They both earn roughly the same amount of money, which is quite a lot for their ages. Rose has a 2-year-old and a husband who earns a fair bit less than her, and Lily has a boyfriend who earns a bit more than her. They both inherited a big chunk of money from my mother, enough for a 10 to 15% deposit on a house they could realistically buy. Rose has always lived beyond her means, and certainly her husband's. They've alluded to using some of their house savings when their daughter, Poppy, was born, despite my wife looking after Poppy full-time while my daughter worked. Her husband has recently confessed he hasn't saved a penny in almost 10 years they've been together. On the other hand, Lily and her boyfriend have almost doubled the original amount saved and never seem to have any issues with money, whilst we constantly seem to be helping out Rose. Both girls are looking at buying houses. Lily and her boyfriend have been approved for a lovely house with a 25% deposit. Rose also had an offer accepted, but as it turned out, due to commuting costs and childcare from moving away, adding up to almost the cost of another mortgage, they will only be able to get a mortgage for roughly half of what they thought. And they only have 5%. Rose told Lily this and asked how on earth she had been accepted on a bigger house as a younger couple. Lily was honest and told her how much she made as a couple and how much they were putting down, and Rose broke down a little. She asked how much we had given Lily, and we told her nothing extra. That night, my wife and I were talking, and she said she didn't realize how badly Rose was financially and how well Lily is doing. We had paid for Rose's wedding and planned to do so for Lily too, but so far she's insisted she doesn't want or need it. I want to keep that money so we can still offer it to her when the time comes, even if Lily won't accept it, but my wife wants to give the money to Rose, as she says having a baby makes it a lot harder for Rose, and she doesn't want the money to go to waste when our only grandchild doesn't have a home. Not the jerk. Taking the money earmarked for Lily's wedding and giving it to Rose is literally throwing the good money after the bad. The difference between the two sisters is not how much they earn, but how well they manage what they have. Lily and her partner are financially savvy and responsible, and Rose and her husband are not. No matter how much money you give Rose, it will go to waste. Not the jerk. But even if Lily turns down the money, you aren't doing Rose any favors. This isn't the case of someone losing their job and struggling, or someone getting in debt after an injury or an illness. This is someone who lived outside of their means and never saved a dime in a decade. I wouldn't be surprised if you have to keep bailing her out if she doesn't learn how to become a fiscally responsible adult. Your wife is the jerk. She's actively enabling your oldest in her bad decisions. The child does not suffer from homelessness. She's almost 30. It's time to put some boundaries down. Stop helping her live over her means. Teach her the reality of life. Your eldest is clearly the golden child of your life. You go, sir. Keep things equal. If your youngest doesn't want the money, put it in a trust fund for her future, kids or not. If the eldest can't budget, it's not the youngest's duty to sacrifice nonstop for her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Hey, Reddit boy, when Dad pays for the wedding, do you think he should get to invite some of his friends? Don't try me, Karen. Am I the jerk for correcting the woman my friend is dating about her status in his life? My longtime friend, Joey, 33 male, and I, 31 female, work for a horse breeding and training facility. The job comes with a nice house that's on the property. We get to live in it for free, and we have for 6 years. When I say nice, I mean 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, dual master with a pool and a hot tub. Kind of dated, but it would probably be considered a mansion by some. There are some catches. Basically, it doubles as a bed and breakfast for out-of-town clients. Especially during show season, we're expected to do a lot of cooking and entertaining there. But we both love it, which is why we stay here. I don't really date much. I'm more of an independent person by nature and a homebody. Joey is kind of the opposite. He's got a lot of disposable income, and he kind of lives the player lifestyle when he has time to. But our jobs are taxing, so we spend a lot of the time just hanging out together at the house, smoking and playing video games. He's my buddy. We spend most days together when he isn't on the road. He's really upfront about not wanting a relationship with the women he sees. I do know this. Dude is on like every dating site. The issue is, he will occasionally have women he sees regularly, and they sometimes will get the impression things are progressing. And I usually start becoming someone they don't like being around so much and start to ask why I live there. He's currently seen 4 different women periodically, 2 of them quite regularly. They're aware that he does not consider it a relationship, but he also doesn't tell them if, when, or how many others there are, and kind of just avoids that topic with them. Recently, one came over, Kelly, who's 36, and he was finishing up with a client in the barn. I invited her in, got her a drink, and invited her to watch TV with me while she waited for him. When we were talking, she started asking about my relationship and if I planned to move out of Joey's house. I'm assuming she worded it that way because Joey is the head trainer at the farm, so he's kind of the star of the show. I'm the manager, so much less glamorous position, but I do make more than him. I told her it was both of our house, not just his, and I didn't have any plans to move out. She then said, "It's just weird that at his age, he would want a female roommate when he's in a relationship." I said, "He's in a relationship?" Her response was that it wasn't official, but they pretty much were. I told her that was news to me. That seemed to offend her, and she said, "Well, maybe you didn't know because you aren't the most important woman in his life. He doesn't have to get your permission." I said, "You're right, he doesn't. I actually don't care. I'm just surprised because if I had to rank the chicks he's currently seeing, you are maybe number 2. This obviously didn't go over well, and she ended up leaving. Ouch. She called Joey, and things there ended. He told me that he was not aware they were basically in a relationship, and said knowing that, he's glad it ended. Our other friend/coworker says it was a jerk thing to say to her. I didn't like her implying that I wasn't welcome in my own home, so I corrected some of her inaccurate beliefs about the situation, and it was the truth. Well, almost. Joey said she was more like number 3. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but I have no idea how he manages to have that much energy to entertain that many people. Not the jerk, and I was totally cracking up at the fact that she thought she could act like the mistress of the house and try to push you out. Great job schooling her. The moment when she realized she wasn't even a side character, but she was acting like the main character. I mean, yeah, you could have handled that better. I 100% believe your friend isn't being as honest with these women as you're trying to get us to think he is. He needs to be honest with these people, and not in a way that embarrasses them and makes them feel bad the way that you did. Everyone sucks here, including you and your friend, who seems like a jerk. Being completely passive-aggressive to a woman who likely is being misled by her friend in the first place. Don't get me wrong, the woman was showcasing heavy insecurities and projecting it upon OP, but OP didn't need to push it as hard as she did. There's ways of handling unpleasant people that don't require acting how she did. I would have just said, "I don't appreciate you questioning why I'm living where I am just because you're spending time with my roommate. If you have questions about that, you should probably talk to him, because I'm not here for you to overstep your boundaries with, and I won't sit here having you speak to me like that." Okay, you are all jerks. Straggling along 5 women at the same time as if it's funny, fair, or a joke? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP, her roommate, or his girlfriend? Well, she's not actually his girlfriend, she's just one of his, circle, I guess? Please let us know. If you just want to hook up with people and aren't actually interested in a relationship, always make that clear to them. Am I the jerk for yelling at my family for getting me a birthday cake I don't want for the 15th year in a row? Unfortunately, I, 18 female, was born a day after my cousin, who's 20 female. Ever since I was little, my needs for my birthday were always outshined by hers. We always did family events to celebrate our birthdays since we were the eldest kids in the family, so we just kind of shared our birthday party. We had the same cake. My family either never wrote my name on it or would messily scribble it on at the last minute. Party decorations and games catered to her taste, and mostly all gifts would be for her. I just usually ended up getting a $10 gift card for Walmart or something, while she always got dolls, games for her Nintendo DS, and even a puppy one time. I always felt like I didn't matter for my birthday. Even my quinceañera fell flat, since my family went all out making my cousin feel like the most special girl in the world. But my cousin was always nice to me, and she would give me some of her gifts just to put a smile on my face. This year was my 18th birthday, and all my relatives were gathered in one place to celebrate me and my cousin's birthdays. My mother had promised me my own separate cake and that it would be an Oreo ice cream cake, my favorite. So I was excited. When my abuela gathered the family together to blow out the candles and sing happy birthday, my cousin and I got in our respective spots. They started singing while my mother brought a cake to the table and placed it in front of my cousin. It was a strawberry cheesecake. After we got done singing, my cousin blew out her candles and everybody clapped. My aunt started to cut the cake, and I would audibly ask about my cake. My entire family looks confused, and they all say, "This cake is for the both of you." My cousin spoke up, saying, "But it only has my name on it." I looked at my mom, who had a "what?" expression on her face. I asked about the cake, and she told me, "You don't need the extra sugar." At that point, I just lost it, screaming at my family members and calling them all jerks. I cried about how this is the 15th year in a row that they've left me out and forgot about me, and how they ruined my birthday by always prioritizing my cousin. My cousin and little brother also jumped in and defended me, saying that I'm always never thought of. My abuela had the audacity to deliberately interrupt me, telling me to sit down and stop yelling. Through anger, I yelled that I never wanted to see any of them again, and I stormed off. My cousin and brother followed me, all comforting me while I cried my eyes out. This happened a few days ago, and I've been receiving angry messages from my family members calling me an ungrateful jerk. I'm at my cousin's apartment right now writing this, all while texting my little brother to vent. Reddit, am I the jerk for yelling at my family for not giving me the cake that I've wanted for nearly my entire lifetime? Edit. After reading the replies, my cousin and I have made the decision to block all of the toxic family members and go no contact. I'll be living at my cousin's apartment now, and we're working on finding me a job. Final edit. I won't be responding to any more comments, but just know that I'm in a safe place now, and we're working on where to go from here. Not just a job, but finding a way to afford college for me and such. Your cousin and brother sound like the only reasonable people. Maybe you could go out, just the three of you, for cake. OP. Funny enough, that's exactly what happened after I walked off. My cousin took my brother and I back to her apartment, and she went to our local Walmart to get me an Oreo ice cream cake, as well as 18 candles. She sang Feliz Cumpleaños to me and gave me $100. Where are your parents in all of this? Why have they let this happen over the years? OP. My parents funded the parties, as well as my aunt, uncle, and abuela. I remember asking them why I never got my own cake when I was 11, and they simply told me, "We just don't have enough money." But that's a lie, since our house that I've grown up in is pretty big. They have 2 BMWs in the driveway, and my little brother is going to private school soon. Did your mom forget? Is she just too broke? OP. It seemed like she just didn't want to get it. She even texted me, "Can't believe you're mad that I didn't get you a darn cake. You didn't need it anyways." Why is everyone against you? What is the root of this favoritism? Is there any context? OP. I hate to make this a self-pity party, but I'll tell you what's happened to me growing up. I was kind of an unwanted kid by my dad since he always wanted a son, and I wasn't feminine enough for my mother. I even remember when I turned 6 that my parents just kind of put me to the side after my little brother was born. I've never really felt like I earned the spotlight enough. They would always congratulate my brother when he made an accomplishment, but mine just kind of fell flat. My parents are the type that believe that art isn't a real job, so they just kind of shook me away whenever I showed them a drawing I made. And my mother would always make offhand comments about how much she wishes that I was like my cousin, who's more feminine, traditionally ladylike, and was an academic scholar back in school. I was basically a C- average student, tomboyish, and kind of average looking in appearance. I get that I'm not the perfect kid, but I kind of wish my parents would at least treat me like their kid, you know? Growing up, my parents always compared me to my cousin. Emily has better grades, her pictures look prettier, her blonde locks are gorgeous. You're going into art? Well, she's going into medical school. I've never resented my cousin for being better, but I hated my parents constantly shoving it in my face. I'm 25 female. My boyfriend, who's 25, of 12 years, has told me he's had a baby. How do I get over this? I've been with my boyfriend since we were both in middle school. I always imagined we would be together forever. He's the only guy I've been with. He's the only boyfriend I've ever had. I've given up so much for him. I didn't pursue my chosen career and go to uni as it would have meant moving away from him. I passed up the opportunity to move abroad with my family, and I now have no family living in this country anymore. I passed up going traveling and nights out with friends on what should have been the best years of my life. We own a house together, we split the mortgage, but I put the full $10,000 deposit down as I am in a financially better position than him. I always envisioned growing old with him, spending my life with him, having kids with him. We briefly broke up in December, early January for a few weeks after an argument. He went out and hooked up with somebody else, but didn't tell me. We just got back together and nothing was said. Yesterday, he speaks to me very upset and tells me that in September, the woman that he had hooked up with had a baby. I asked why he didn't tell me sooner, and he said because he doubted the kid was his and he wanted to block it all out, so he was ignoring her. But the girl contacted his mother, and his mother had a grandparent DNA test done and proved she's the grandmother. Ever since, his mom has been arguing with him about being involved, as she sees the baby every weekend and is telling him that he needs to tell me. He only told me because his mom said if he didn't, then she would. I don't know how to handle this. Boyfriend is crying, saying he was trapped, that she had told him there was no way she could get pregnant. He's saying he's not ready and he doesn't want to lose me and is making threats on himself if I leave him. I don't know what to do. Do I forget these past 12 years and all I've ever known and move on? Or do I forgive him and try to make this work? Edit. I did message the girl, probably against my better judgment, and asked how we could move forward, and I sent her my best wishes. She just said that she doesn't care if he does or doesn't want to be involved, and that the door's open, but she's glad his family are involved. Then she blocked me. I don't want a stepkid at all. I don't even want a kid of my own for at least another 5 years. I asked him how we would move on from this, and he said, "We'll just pretend the kid doesn't exist and go on about our lives," which disgusted me because I never thought he was the type of coward to abandon his kid like this, and I don't want to be seen as enabling him to do that. I truly believe even if I was out of his life, he wouldn't see the kid, and with us still together in that situation, I'd be seen as the evil one and like I somehow condone his actions. I envisioned him as a strong man of good character, and the fact he doesn't want involvement with the kid and keeps referring to the baby as it, and has even blocked his mom off everything because she is seeing the baby and he doesn't want her to, makes me look at him in a different cowardly light and is giving me the ick. If he had told me when he found out that he had got a girl pregnant but they had needed a DNA test, then got a DNA when the baby was born and he had stuck by the kid, I don't think I'd even be asking this question. I'd be upset and not want to be a step-parent, and I doubt I would be involved myself for a few years, but I'd have supported him and accepted his mistake. The way he's gone about it has ruined everything. If he truly loved me and cared about me, he would have told me from day one. Honey, you're done. You're still so young. You can do better than this. You will do better without this. 1. Break up with him. 2. Sell the house and split the proceeds, minus your down payment. 3. Go to college. You should never ever limit yourself educationally or professionally for a boyfriend. This is a very hard lesson to learn, but I hope you take this to heart. You are young, you still have time to go to college and start a great career. This would be a deal breaker for me personally. Also the fact that he didn't tell you about it until he had to and is now being emotionally manipulative so you don't leave. At 25, you've got the world ahead of you instead of being someone's stepmom. Exactly. Get out of this. You will learn nothing from being a stepmother to help you in this relationship. The baby's mother is already against you. She's blocked you, and it may only get worse. He's been with you since you were in middle school, but he meets this random, hooks up with her, trusts her word that she can't have kids, finally tells you nearly a year later that he's a father. So in effect, he's telling you he trusts her more than you. I see misery in your future with this dynamic. Leave now while you still can. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. This the type of dude to refuse to pay child support until the court mandates it, then expect his girlfriend to help him pay it. Am I the jerk for refusing to revoke our prenup? I, 32 male, have been married to my wife, 30 female, for over 2 years now, and we've been together for 6 years. I come from a substantially wealthy family. I have a few assets, both inherited and built upon, in my name. My wife, on the other hand, comes from a lower income household. When we started dating, the economic difference was very evident. While I trust her in general, my family is riddled with stories of gold diggers, in both genders. So I told her if we were to get married, I would be comfortable enough only if she signed a prenup. It's not as in I won't share my privilege with her at all. I would provide the best life for us as long as we are together. She agreed, readily claiming she loved me for me and not for my wealth. Hence we have a prenup. To clarify, she was working all that time, but with our income disparity, I was covering 70% of expenses. Barely a year into marriage, she got pregnant. We were happy about it. 5 months in, she wanted to quit her job. I supported her decision since I was making enough money to support us. But 3 months into having our newborn, she demands I revoke the prenup. Her argument is she's staying home to raise our kid and putting her career on the line, so there should not be any prenup. I reminded her that I was taking care of us financially while she stayed home with our baby. I look after baby when I'm home as well. She said that's my duty as a father. I said, by that logic, staying home with our baby is her duty as a mother and not something to be compensated for. Not to mention it was her choice to stay home. She got upset with me, saying I don't care about her at all. It's untrue, but her logic is not making sense here. She's not letting this go and keeps saying that I'm ruining her life by holding my purse strings so tight, that she deserves to be on the title of our home at least. When I reminded her it's a premarital property and if she wants her name on a title deed, we can buy a new property together when she gets back to work. Further info. I'm not only taking care of my family financially, I'm also putting money into her retirement fund. I just put my income, other than properties, into our joint account and we both spend from it. Am I the jerk for not revoking the prenup? If this situation was not covered in the prenup, you need better lawyers. Also, a prenup cannot waive away or nullify child support, and in many states, a judge can override it during the divorce if the terms are lopsided. As a compromise, you should do a postnuptial amendment to the prenup to reassure her that your kids and her will still be secure if something happens. She's probably scared that she's going to be at home raising the kids and you will leave her and she'll end up homeless and broke. It's scary. She's at home taking care of your baby, which is a full-time job, saving money for daycare and enriching your kid's life. It isn't scary until you're in the scenario she's in. She had a job and hadn't experienced the situation she's in until she's in it. Take a step back from the prenup side of things and just listen to her and realize it's a lot deeper than her being after your money. She just needs some reassurance. If this was you, I'm sure you'd be feeling similar, especially if more kids are in your future. She's still in postpartum. It's really hard. You are all over the place. Hormones and needing to feel secure is scary, especially if she's never had to rely on someone while not working before. He pays for a chef and a housekeeper. His wife isn't responsible for housework or cooking. He's offered to be a stay-at-home father while she returns to work. He's offered to hire a nanny so she can return to work. He's funding her 401k while she's a stay-at-home mom with inflation adjustments. She has full access to his marital assets, no allowance. If she wasn't stressed before about not having access to his full assets, her new free time may have resulted in a toxic friend undermining her sense of security. People with massive wealth tend to attract these kinds of leeches. I can't blame OP for starting to be concerned. Do you have something in your prenup about alimony? Because if not, you're going to be done for. The courts in most states will favor a stay-at-home mom who lost out on career earnings over a rich dude. You guys should do a postnup at minimum to cover alimony, and she should speak to a family lawyer. Not the jerk. Yeah, you married a gold digger. She was just more patient than most. You're the jerk. This sounds like a really bad and unfair prenup if the deal is she has your baby, gives up her career to take care of the baby, then gets nothing if you decide to run off with a 20-year-old in 10 years. Prenups are supposed to protect both parties, not one. And good prenups definitely don't leave the mother of your baby, who is doing free child labor amounts to tens of thousands of dollars a year that you'd have to pay for if you were a single father, desolate in the event of a divorce you can decide is happening on a whim. Renegotiate the prenup. Make it fair, protect yourself, but also have the minimum decency to recognize she is working right now, albeit as a stay-at-home mom, and she also needs protection for what she's putting into building your life in the event of a divorce. OP. She did not just have my baby, she had our baby. I never said she's not working, but I am also working and contributing equitably to the family. It was also her choice to stay home. I support her in whatever she decides. If she decides to go back tomorrow, I will support her there too. And for the money she is supposedly saving me, and it should be saving us, because the baby is ours, not just mine, I'm fully funding her lifestyle, plus her share of baby-related expenses and household expenses, and putting money into retirement, which is combined more of an amount than her previous income was. If you're working and contributing equitably, why are you the only one who would end up richer than you were if the relationship ends? OP. Because I started off richer before marriage. It's premarital assets and income from them, not marital. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. I'm not so sure the people on Reddit are the best people to be talking to about this. Think I'd consult with some experts on this one. My Karen neighbor is demanding a copy of my apartment key. So I recently moved into my new apartment complex less than 60 days ago. There are only 4 units in my complex, 2 downstairs and 2 upstairs. I reside downstairs in the second apartment. Everyone here has lived here for at least 5 years, whilst the oldest resident has lived here for 8. Everyone knows everyone and has been good friends with each other for as long as each one has been a resident. Everyone in my building has kids besides me, and the majority are single mothers. I'm the only man. Apparently, there's an unspoken agreement I at first had no knowledge of between the other tenants that the hallway door is to never be locked. No one ever locks the hallway door. That was until I arrived. From my knowledge, no one in the building has a hallway key, just the keys to their own apartments. The cost to replace a key is $70, quoted from my landlord. I just finished up my place and have officially moved in for about 3 weeks now. Each time I leave and come back from my complex, I always lock the hallway door. It's always been important to lock all doors around me. My neighbor that works night shift has arrived home for the past couple of weeks to a locked hallway door, which is a surprise given that the door hasn't been locked for years. Apparently, everyone lost their key their first year or so living in the complex. I will hear continuous knocking and banging until someone comes to open the door. The first few nights I was awakened and I got up to unlock the door. After the first week, I've since stopped answering and my neighbor will get up to go unlock it to let our other neighbor in. If my neighbor isn't home or doesn't wake up to come to the door, she will knock and bang on every window and yell until someone comes to open the door. Yesterday, my neighbor asked if I could please leave the door unlocked, given that it's always been that way and they would like me to continue doing so. I expressed that while we live in a dangerous neighborhood, rated one of the top 5 most dangerous in our city, I feel more safe knowing strangers can't enter our building. While she understood my concerns, she assured me no one ever comes here other than residents and their visitors, and my safety is not to worry about. I had to beg to differ. She then asks would I mind lending her my hall key so she can make a copy and let others make their own copy from hers. I politely declined because I wasn't comfortable with that. She offered to pay me to make a copy myself, and which I also declined. For the past week, my neighbors have barely spoken to me. We usually tell each other good morning and chat a little bit, or just say hi or bye, but not even that nowadays. My neighbor, whom volunteers at the food bank in our community, would come back with goodies and share with everyone in the complex. And she no longer knocks on my door to offer me a box as she usually did every Wednesday. I don't care for the food, but the change in this routine leads me to believe I may have upset the rest of the tenants, and I honestly don't want any bad blood. So, my understanding is that this is a communal hallway leading to individual apartment entrances, and the doors to individual apartments can be locked? I don't understand why you wouldn't let them copy your hallway key if that's the case, to be honest. It costs like $3 to $5. You're the jerk. Not always. Some high security keys can be expensive, but it doesn't matter as he's not being asked to pay for it. You're the jerk. You live in a dangerous neighborhood and you're making it so your neighbors are trapped outside at night. You aren't participating in letting them in despite knowing that you locked them out, and you refuse to get them a copy of the communal door key even though they're happy to pay for it. Dude, you suck. Counterpoint. Why has everyone else lost their high security door key? Landlords should charge them all to replace the lock. That's a serious concern. If they pay you for a copy, I don't see what your issue is. It's $70 for the landlord to do it, so it would be cheaper if you did it for everyone. If you want that community and connection, then you have to give a little to get a little back. You're the jerk. Am I the jerk for jumping out of the way when my niece and nephew tried to push me into the pool? Plus updates. My folks decided to host a barbecue because I guess that's what older people do. I declined because I really don't like my 2 sisters, their husbands, or their kids. Wife and I are child-free. Mom then pressured my wife. Long story short, we went. By the time we arrived, there were about 20 people there. My sisters and their husbands were already solidly buzzed, drunk really. My mom was spending 100% of her time trying to keep the nieces and nephews, ages 7 to 11, more or less under control. My dad had strategically retreated to the whirlpool part of the pool with small cooler full of beers. Wife and I made small talk with miscellaneous people, ate food, and we had a frozen margarita. Sisters and brother-in-laws took turns criticizing us for being late, not being in our swimsuits, and messing up the vibe. Whatever. Typical suburban summer get-together. About 45 minutes in, 2 of the kids ran at one of the neighbor guests who was standing next to the pool and pushed her in. She was at the pool steps, stumbled in, but didn't really fall, so only got half wet. She was clearly very unhappy about it, but she didn't make a scene. Just went over to where the parents were, grabbed their towels, dried herself off, and left. Sisters and brother-in-laws thought it was funny. A bit later, I was standing a few feet away from the pool, chatting away with someone. I saw 3 of the kids running full tilt at me from the corner of my eye. Obviously, I was next. Not that it's terribly difficult to outwit the kids, but I just jumped out of their way at the last second. All 3 of them ran straight into the pool at full speed. Most of the other guests, including my wife and me, started laughing, but their moms, who as I mentioned were pretty buzzed, absolutely freaked out. Apparently, 2 of the kids couldn't even swim. Since I wasn't in swim gear, I stepped back from the pool and let other people fish them out. The little brats were bawling their heads off. At that point, all heck broke loose. The 4 drunk parents were yelling at everyone in general, and me in particular for what I had done, and also because 2 of the kids had been videoing the trick using their parents' iPhones, which were now at the bottom of the pool. One of my brother-in-laws got into the pool to try to retrieve the phones, but his BMI and BAC made that impossible. No one else volunteered to help, unsurprising given that my sisters were still jerks to everyone. I told my sisters it was their job to watch their kids, and that if anything had happened to them, it would have been their responsibility, not mine. There were some pretty strong words on both sides. Wife and I left after the other brother-in-law fell over and face-planted while yelling at us. Now they're saying I should have let the kids knock me into the pool and have their fun, and ruin my phone. So, am I the jerk? Side note, Dad, of course, never got out of the whirlpool. Edit. I realize that they're just kids and they were just having fun. The fact that they thought this was okay is more of a reflection of their parents than them. Just wish we hadn't gone. It's nice to see my folks and their neighbors, but I really don't like my sisters or their husbands. They don't hide their envy of us, and they're just exhausting to be around. I've never been close to my sisters. They're 8 and 10 years older than me. I also don't have much in common with their husbands. They're okay guys, but I just don't give a hoot about the things that are important to them and vice versa. I do know that the 4 of them are somewhat envious of our lifestyle. Both the sisters are stay-at-home moms. Both the husbands make good money. One makes noticeably more than I do. But both my wife and I have professional careers, we don't have kids, and we are way more responsible with money. As a result, we have a lot more investments, etc. And we don't have to drive cars full of kid debris, and we take nice trips once or twice a year. It definitely grates on both sisters and by extension their husbands, so we get some petty behavior from them on an ongoing basis. Neither my wife nor I enjoy their company, which is why I wanted to skip the get-together. Just not worth it to me, but my wife is a positive person and is usually happy to see them. Hopefully next time your wife won't feel guilted into going. That's probably the one positive thing that will come out of this. Wife is much more tolerant and forgiving than I am towards my siblings, but based on what she was saying on the way home, I think she's had it with them as well. Your dad sounds awesome. Yeah, he's very chill. He loves being around groups of people. He used to be in sales. He likes people to enjoy themselves and is definitely enjoying life as a retiree. He and 2 other guys with him just sat there and watched the show. Mom's cool too, but the situation upset her. Update. After we left, the party ended on a pretty sour note. My drunk brother-in-law who face-planted while yelling at me had to go to urgent care and get his face stitched up. He was too toasted to drive, so Dad took him. Dad was very not happy about this. Later that evening, my sisters started a group text and said some really nasty things. Their husbands threw in a few comments as well. Wife and I blocked the 4 of them. My mom called me, and she was pretty upset about what they had said. She and Dad were in the chat, and I don't blame her. Because of the texts, my folks insisted my sisters and brother-in-laws come over the next day, Sunday, without their kids to get some things straight and lay down some ground rules, Mom's wording. The result was a contrite, if unenthusiastic, apology from the siblings via my mom's phone. I'm glad my wife was with me when they called. Her hard stares kept me from saying things I wanted to. I just told them thanks and that we felt no need to discuss it further. Since I thought things were settled, I unblocked them. That evening, I got a text from one of my brother-in-laws telling me that the phones cost them this much money and asking if I'd be paying for them. What? I replied, never. Took a screenshot of his message and sent it to my folks with a note that we were done with this nonsense. We're going no contact with sisters and their spouses and not to invite us to any more holidays or get-togethers if they'll be there. Then I blocked my sisters and their spouses again. At that point, crap really hit the fan. Dad called them and laid into them. Among other things, he told them that grandkids were not welcome at his place indefinitely. Since my mom regularly provides free babysitting, that got them pretty rattled. He also banned them from using the vacation house and told them my wife and I actually own it, not he and Mom. This completely freaked them out. Both of my sisters' families use that place a lot, including having their friends up there for weekend getaways. This was very much out of character for my folks. They'd clearly had it. And for reference, I never wanted my sisters to know that we owned the place. We bought it for my folks. They had always wanted a place in the mountains. Keeping the ownership quiet was just a way to avoid drama with my siblings. A couple of days later, my sisters and their husbands came to our place unannounced to apologize in person. We were out to dinner and they left a note. One sister also called me at work too. I sent her a voicemail. We've decided being no contact is the best thing for the indefinite future and haven't interacted with them for at least 3+ weeks. Personally, I'm done. They can buzz off. Update. It's been less than a month, but I have to say that blocking them has actually made our lives noticeably more peaceful. I hadn't realized how much ongoing low-level drama they create. It's not toxic, they're not bad people, they're just tiresome and petty. And I personally don't care about them using the weekend place. It's ours technically, but we bought it for my folks. They control it and they decide who uses it when they're not there. We pay for all of the operating costs and taxes. One good thing about this blow-up is that we now know what we'll be doing with the property once my folks get older. I was prepared to take over managing it, allocating weekends, maintaining it and such, but now we know we'll just sell it, and if we want to go up to the mountains, we'll just rent an Airbnb. Karen tries to get my husband to cheat on me. I exposed her to her husband. I, 31 female, am married to my husband, 31 male, who we'll call Scott. So Scott is AP security, secret shopper, at a big corporate store. He goes to work looking pretty fresh, smelling good, and he's a good-looking guy, so he gets compliments and whatnot, which makes him feel good, and I totally get it. They can look, but don't touch, you know? Anyways, so there's this female coworker who we'll call Karen, 37 female, and Karen is married. The other day, Karen went on her secondary Facebook she uses for online gaming and messaged my husband. It started off innocent at first, asking things like, "Is this the Scott guy from work?" And it turned into saying things like, "Hi Scotty," smiley face. He doesn't go by Scotty. And then asking for relationship advice about some other guy at work who was not her husband. So one night she messaged him, and out of the blue she asks my husband if he would like to make $30 an hour being someone's side piece. He immediately showed me and involved me in the conversation. As the conversation continued, it became clear she was talking about herself. That totally caught me by surprise, because who does that? My husband tried to nicely tell her that that's not the way to handle things and she needs to fix her relationship. He also said some stuff that I was not at all happy with, like that he understood her frustration. This caused a fight between us, and I ended up taking it upon myself to message her and go off on her for doing that knowing that he's married. She wasn't at all remorseful and just made excuses. She acknowledged in previous texts to my husband that he has a wife, so she knew. He also immediately reported this to HR as harassment, however, they're just dragging their feet. In the meantime, she ended up approaching him again at work, asking him why he showed me, his wife, the messages. He blew her off basically and said, obviously she was going to see them, and he just didn't want it to be awkward. He told me about this, and I know it's going to be awkward no matter what, and he needs to be more clear with Karen about wanting nothing to do with this. Fast forward another week. She messaged him again at work this time. She tells him, come to the back room, a place where she knew there wouldn't be anyone else around. He said, why, and she never answered him via text. Later that night, she walks up to him asking him to delete that last text thread. This is where he finally told her off and basically said, this BS has to stop. I'm not dishonest with my wife and this isn't going to happen. She walked away and pretends everything is peachy the next time she sees me, smiling and trying to say hi. Here's where I may be the jerk. I don't think it's very fair to her husband to not know and just be with someone who does this kind of thing. So I Googled and found him and his phone number, and then I called him and told him the whole story. And as for me being too harsh on my husband, in their first conversation, she ended up feeling stupid and tried to backtrack and say, oh, I'm sorry. My husband responded with, don't be sorry. This is what really made me upset, because not only did he excuse her behavior, but said he understood her. I saw red. He admitted this was a poor way to handle things and is fully supportive of me being petty. Edit to add to my conversation with Karen's husband since it's getting lost in the sea of comments. Me. Is this so-and-so? Him. Yes. Me. Is your wife Karen Stupid Face? Yes. Okay, Steve. You don't know me, but I think you should know this. Your wife asked my husband to be her side piece for money at work. Really? Wow. Okay. Me. I go into detail about how I know it's his wife, her gaming profile, etc. I'm really sorry to be the one to tell you, but I think you need to know that this is how she acts at work. What's your husband's name? I'd like to keep him out of this because it was her who approached him multiple times and isn't taking the hint. Again, I'm sorry. No, thank you. I would rather no. Good luck, Steve. Bye. Bye. Thank you. This is the basic tone of it, with some of the words maybe being slightly different. Some further context to the situation. A friend told me that it's worth mentioning that my husband and I have a young family. Our kids are 3 years old and 8 months, and I'm extremely protective of them. This woman, in my opinion, tried to sabotage that happy family picture. Am I the jerk for hanging up on my wife when she used my words against me? I, 37 male, have been working late the last few weeks, 6 to 6:30, 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts. My wife, Elizabeth, who's 41, and I were talking a few nights ago while I was doing the dishes. I had also done the weekly grocery shopping, bathed, and put our kid to bed. Elizabeth's day was busy too. She works full-time, drops off and picks up our kid at school, had taken her to dancing. She started telling me about problems at work. I listened for a few minutes, then she started complaining about my family and their communication skills. We have a family get-together this weekend, and the plans are unclear because my family are poor communicators. I acknowledged this, then said, "Can we talk about something more positive? I want to talk with and spend time with you, but I'd like to discuss things that build me up." She stopped, stared daggers at me, and said, "That was not okay," and walked off upstairs. The next day I was coming home early, but I hit traffic. She called when I was in the car, and we chatted. Then she said I sounded upset and asked me what's wrong. I said, "I'm aggravated because for the first time in 2 weeks, I left work after 10 hours and not 12, but I got caught in traffic, and I'm going to get home at the same time anyway." She said, "How would you feel if I said, 'Can we talk about something more positive?'" I hung up. I got home about 5 minutes later, and when I walked in the door, she said, "That was not okay." After dinner, I said, "I know you're upset, so let's discuss it now so it doesn't fester." Elizabeth said that last night she just needed to vent and needed me to listen. I said I could listen some, but I was so worn out I didn't have the capacity to listen to too much negativity. I said I know my family's communication skills are poor, but I still didn't want to hear her bash them for minutes on end. Elizabeth said it wasn't okay I hung up on her, and I was out of line. I said, "You asked me what was bothering me, then when I told you, you said, 'Can we talk about something more positive?' It felt like you baited me, then took a shot at me because you were upset about last night." She said it wasn't a shot. I'd know if she took a shot at me. She was trying to teach me empathy for another human because I'm not empathetic. I apologized for hanging up on her and said that there was a better way I could have handled that interaction by saying something like, "That felt like a shot. What was your intent?" Elizabeth said, "Why does that feel like a shot? That's a you thing. You need to work on how you take things I say. Give me the benefit of the doubt. You're the one who's taking shots at me. You always believe the worst of me." I said that I'd try to give her the benefit of the doubt in the future, but the situation felt like she was coming at me. She insists she was just trying to teach me how to have empathy. Part of me thinks this is one of those shoes not so comfortable on the other foot, but I also feel these are different. I need some help sorting through if I'm the jerk or not. Edit. Adding in the following because a lot of people have asked about it. I couldn't include it because of the character limit. The get-together this weekend is my brother's wedding. I'm standing in it, and our daughter is the flower girl. We didn't get a schedule of when we were supposed to be where until earlier this week, and we keep getting hit with last-minute additions of places to be. I've told my family that we can't be at some of them because that's too short notice and we need a break, but we will be at others. She was venting because we didn't get the schedule of when to be where until a day or two before the flight, about 5 days before the wedding, and because things kept getting added last minute. Sounds like you also have poor communication skills. Validating her for her frustration, but then changing the subject isn't really anything. You could have offered a solution like, "I'll call them up and find out what's what," but instead, you acknowledged it and then changed the subject. Then you found yourself in a frustrating situation and she called you out, and you hanging up was a tantrum because she showed you how hypocritical you were being. You're the jerk. Your family has poor communication skills? Looks like you inherited it too. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. What is it with all these men who think the world revolves around them? Your wife has issues with your sorry excuse of a family, and you're too much of a wimp to even hear it. Something more positive? Hate to break it to you, but life isn't all sunshine and rainbows. Real life sucks, and you can't hide from it. You sound like my ex. He used to say the same stuff, that I was too negative. Gee, maybe because I have nothing to be happy about. Ever thought of that, genius? I knew it was over for good when he started meditating and doing positive affirmations in the morning. I just laughed at him because I know none of that crap actually works. I told him how dumb he was for believing it, and he even asked me to attend some stupid TED Talks thing with him. Not the jerk. I will get downvoted for this like I always do, but this is why so many men from America are finding women to marry in countries like mine, where we are still kind, loving, and agreeable. If my husband were to ask me to discuss something more positive, then I would happily do so because I love him and care about him. The wife in this story just has no respect for her husband, and this seems to be an ongoing issue in countries like the US. Then you act surprised when men move abroad and start families with women like me. You say it's because they aren't strong enough for a woman like you. No, they are definitely strong. They just don't want to be married to someone who takes away from their quality of life instead of adding to it. Edit. Oh really? I only married my husband for his money? That's funny considering he is a disabled vet who lives off his pension. He is not exactly what most of you consider rich, but I don't care how much money he makes. I care that he wants the same thing as I do, to have our family and live happily together. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. If Reddit boy asked me to discuss something more positive, he'd need a new head. Am I the jerk for rescinding letting my friend live at our house? My husband, who's 40, and I, 38, spend our winters down south with my family, leaving our large home up north vacant for months at a time, starting after Thanksgiving. We like to offer the house for free to people we know while we're gone, since otherwise it just sits vacant. We prefer knowing someone is here if something goes wrong, while our friends get a vacation. And unlike an Airbnb, professional cleaners come in every other week, so there's no maintenance. We offered the house to my friend Jill, who's 39, and her fiancé, Jack, 41. Jill already has a condo, but Jack's kids don't have a place to stay there, so we hoped they would want the larger space so the kids could visit more. Jack jumped on it, with Jill saying she would stay on weekends. A couple of weeks later, Jill told me she and Jack had broken up. Jack was going to stay with Jill for 1.5 months, then move into our house. We were okay with that. At that point, it seemed like all 4 of us would still remain friendly and maybe even continue our weekly game nights. A week after that, Jill told me that Jack was already dating around while living at her place. He would get on dating sites next to her on the couch and was texting constantly and going out at night. She said it was hard to see him dating just a couple weeks after their breakup, but that she understood this was how he was handling things. A couple of weeks after that, Jill told me she no longer wanted to be included on group chats with Jack. Jack had started a relationship with another woman, and things had gotten ugly enough, Jill asked him to move out. He was living on a friend's couch and was posting pictures of this new woman on Facebook. My husband and I started to feel uncomfortable with Jack staying here. It was one thing when it was Jack, Jill, and the kids. It's another with Jack and a bunch of dates, or Jack and a new lady I've never even met. We didn't hear from Jack during this time, so everything was coming from Jill or Facebook. But Jack just didn't seem to be in the same headspace as when we spent time with him. I had concerns that he couldn't keep it together for 1.5 months to move into our place. I don't want to be judgmental of Jack's life or coping methods, but I don't feel like he's treating my friend well. We started reaching out to other people for staying at the house. Jack finally contacted us today and asked when we would give him the grand tour. I realize now that Jack could really use the place to stay more than anyone we know, and we did tell him that he could stay. But I just feel uncomfortable letting him stay here, and I feel like a bad friend to Jill, who has encouraged us not to let this interfere with our friendship with Jack, and who has said that she thinks Jack is a good guy, but immature and spiteful. Would I be the jerk telling Jack we are rescinding our offer to let him stay 3 weeks before he's supposed to? Am I wrong in assuming this would absolutely destroy any chance of friendship if or when Jack stops what seems like a middle crisis? Not the jerk. Your friendship was based mainly with Jill, and Jack received the invitation to stay incidentally because he and Jill were a unit. I completely understand your distaste for and hesitation about him now. The main reason to uninvite Jack is what the previous person stated. He's currently couch surfing, and if he's able to have stable housing at your place, he's not going to want to give it up, especially since he has kids. The length of time he stays could grant him residency, and then you'll have to go through a formal eviction process. It can open a huge can of worms for you, so you should err on the side of caution and rescind the offer to Jack. It will spare everyone what could easily turn into a nightmare. OP. Oh geez, I hadn't even considered the squatting issue. We've been doing this for years, but with closely trusted friends, like Jill level. that I'd not even considered someone taking advantage of it. Regardless of what we do, I think we need to come up with a contract. No jerks here, whatever you decide. I know it's not necessarily what the post is about, but it doesn't seem like Jack is doing anything wrong from what you've told us. Jill even said it's okay for you to remain friends with him. You shouldn't feel like you have to refuse him for Jill's sake. It seems like she's just salty that he has moved on so quickly. OP. I don't have an issue with Jack moving on at whatever speed he wishes. Jill doesn't either. She said it was painful to see him move on, but that she understands that that's how he deals with heartache, and so this was expected. When I got divorced over 10 years ago, I was very conscious of judgment that comes with moving too fast, and I still got judged. The answer is that people who still supported your ex will think any amount of time is too fast, so I try not to put that on others. The issue comes in that Jill not only offered to let him stay after their breakup long enough to get a new place, but helped to facilitate him getting 4 months of a place to live for free, vouching that he would be fine there on his own without her. And his response has been to very openly start dating other people, to the point of showing pictures of the women to Jill and telling her how old they are. I understand they're sharing a space, but if married spouses can manage to have affairs, then surely Jack can discreetly date while still living with Jill. This is a purposeful action on Jack's part, and even then, Jill continued to express disappointment with his choices but gave him a place to stay. It wasn't until Jack started to post pictures of his new girlfriend publicly that Jill asked him to leave, and even then gave him a week to find temporary housing. I wouldn't want to live with a man who is dating another woman either, and Jill has still said things to the effect that she doesn't want to make her friends choose, but that she doesn't see a friendship continuing with Jack. I'm not sure what part of that makes Jill sound salty to you. She's one of the most grounded people I know and is taking the high road at every possible opportunity. Update. First, I called Jill to have a talk with her. I told her I respected her taking the high road, but if she needed my support, we were in her corner. She updated me that Jack says he met this new woman 2 days after they've split up. I'm not sure I believe that. He started taking her out several times a week, then describing the dates to Jill. He would show Jill pictures of her, telling Jill that he was impressed he got a woman under 30. He told her that he didn't mean for it to happen so quickly, but that he's madly in love with her and that she is the one. That was the point Jill told him to move out. She said she didn't think Jack would respect a no strangers rule if we had him stay in our house, but that she wouldn't see us having him house sit us as taking sides. It was a good talk. Next, I had a long, thorough talk with my husband about both our future relationship with Jack and our needs in a house sitter. He said that Jack reminded him of my husband when he was in his 20s and that he would never let a 20-year-old me live at my house. He said he felt more comfortable just setting up blink cameras, which was the opposite goal of having a house sitter. So my husband wrote a long, polite text to Jack saying he wished Jack and his new relationship the best, but we don't feel comfortable with a stranger at our house, and that we felt like stepping back was the best idea during this breakup. Jack responded, "I understand. Thanks for the heads up." So in the end, a lot of time and energy put into a tough decision with the most blasé response ever, which is probably the best result possible. Thanks for all the advice. Am I the jerk because I let others eat my food which contains unrefrigerated eggs? So this is extremely ridiculous, but 2 people told me I was wrong, so I'm asking here. I don't want to make this overly complicated, so I'll summarize. A person from work, Jessica, visited me at home and sat in my kitchen for some reason. Due to her observation and our conversation, she came to know that I store my eggs, like most people I know, on the shelf or the counter and not in the fridge. For some reason, she went nuts about this completely normal thing, told me I should not eat uncooled eggs ever. I told her it was fine several times, but she was really agitated about it, and it was weird. At work, we often bring in food to share, mostly cake and baked goods or salads. I brought in a potato and egg salad and put it in the kitchen for everyone. At some point, a work friend quietly told me that Jessica would tell people in the kitchen to not eat my food since she was in my house recently and saw that I do not care about food safety. Apparently, she did not explain in detail that it was about the eggs, but just about food safety in general. I explained loudly in front of everyone that the issue was that I do not put my eggs in the fridge. Colleagues laughed a little about it since that's how most people do it and continued to eat my salad. However, another person from work, Nicole, came up to me later and told me I should not feed others risky food without informing them, and if I wanted to take the risk of eating those eggs, it was my decision, but to not make that decision for others. I was absolutely confused. It's the first time I've heard about people freaking out about storing eggs. So, am I the jerk for using unrefrigerated eggs in other people's food? Edit. I'm from a country in Central Europe, and those eggs were from the supermarket, where they also don't put them in the fridge. My coworker is from here as well, as far as I know. She moved here from our capital city, where it's pretty international, so it's possible that A, her parents are from the States, or B, she got this idea from her international friends, but apart from this, no idea. She is no expat from North America though. Generally speaking, it's like this. Many countries inoculate chickens against salmonella, and the eggs aren't washed. The US does not inoculate and also washes the eggs. Nations that inoculate for salmonella and don't wash eggs don't require refrigeration of eggs either at the store or at home. The US requires refrigeration as a mitigation against salmonella. Anyone please enlighten me if my understanding is wrong, I'm happy to be corrected. OP, you're not the jerk for storing and using your eggs in accordance with local health and food safety norms. We also require refrigeration because the natural protective plume has been washed off the egg, making it more porous and it goes bad faster. I stayed at my long-distance boyfriend's house and was disgusted, not sure what to do. I, 26 female, have been seeing and dating this guy who's 26 since July, and things have been going really good. It's a long-distance situation, but we've managed to see each other at least once a month. So far, he's been kind, thoughtful, and no major red flags were detected on my end, until the first time I flew out to visit him, I decided to stay at an Airbnb since we were still getting to know each other and I wanted my own space. The trip went super well and I had an amazing time. Last week, I went back and he invited me to stay with him this time. He lives with his brother and dad, but his dad was away, so it made sense and I agreed. When I got to his house, it was late and dark, so I didn't notice much other than a weird smell. They have 3 dogs and live on an island, so I figured that had something to do with it. When I woke up, I started to notice that the house was pretty dirty, things scattered everywhere. Not hoarding bad, but pretty bad. The bathroom had dog hair, dirt, and overall looked like it hadn't been kept up with in a while. I tried to look past it since there are 2 guys living there and kept a positive attitude. Nobody gave me any rundown about the situation or apologized for the mess, but I figured his dad might have a small hoarding problem of some sort. On the second day, I started to notice even more things. The dogs don't get walked, so they go to the bathroom and throw up in the house and in the laundry area that's right behind the kitchen. They only get let out to the side yard from time to time. The dogs have to pass by the bathroom to get to it, which explains why there's so much hair and paw prints and dirt in there. I started to feel uncomfortable showering there because I didn't feel like I was in a clean environment, and I feel terrible for the animals. Then a really awful smell, like throw up, appeared from the laundry area. He mentioned it, and I asked him what he thought it was. He said throw up from the dogs, but he couldn't see where it was coming from. The day after, he wanted to invite his friends over to hang out, so I told him he'd have to clean up that smell at the very least before they arrived. He told me that he would if he had time, and I started feeling even more disgusted than before. He didn't have enough time the next day, and his brother and him figured out it was a great idea to burn a cantaloupe incense right before their friends came to mask and hide the smell. They were hanging out on the table right by the smell the entire time they were there. At this point, I was beyond grossed out. I spoke to him about it, the mess, and the lack of urgency to clean up the smell, and he said that staying on top of cleaning with the dogs was an uphill battle, and he had to some degree given up on it. He also told me that he doesn't plan on living like that once he lives on his own and will not be getting any pets. As for the smell, he told me he didn't think it was just throw up and thought it might be some sort of animal or rodent and didn't want to clean it up and find something in front of me, so he brushed it off as much as he could so he could get to it after I left. I told him I would rather seen whatever it was and saw that there was at least some initiative on his part than to just let me think that it's not a priority to live in a clean place. I feel weird because cleanliness is really important to me and I just can't believe what I experienced. I do not want, nor could I live like that in the future, and I kind of want to end it, but he's a great guy in all other aspects. From what I know, since I've now been totally surprised. How would you handle this situation? To not even lift a finger for guests? Girl, he won't change. I was going to ask if he's the only man in town, but he isn't even in your town. Are there literally no other men within a day's drive of you? I would 100% break up. He lives in filth, and he doesn't have much of a problem with it. He is a negligent pet owner. If you live with him, you will be doing all of the cleaning. If you have kids with him, you will be doing all of the childcare. He can't be bothered to do basic tasks. This is who he is. Don't bother trying to change him. It's not your job to fix him. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend he misled me? I, 24 female, recently moved in with my boyfriend and his mother, who's 65, because we've been dating for a while and thought it was time to make the next move. And I had some big issues with my previous flat. If it rained, it would seep through the floors and the walls, and the roof was starting to mold, etc. It was a nightmare. So I got a transfer at work and I moved. We had a discussion about what was expected of each other, and we had come to an agreement on chores. I would do slightly less because I'm the only one working. He doesn't work, and what we are paying. We agreed that we would both give his mother a certain amount per month for food since his mom is an amazing cook and I'm not the best. Originally, I was going to cook after I came home from work, but then we figured it would be better if she cooked. He'd cover electricity and insurance for the car since it's his. I'd cover fuel for work transport, and once I hit 25, they would make me the main driver on the car so I could drive myself to work. I'm in my second month of being here, and nothing we agreed on has stayed in place. I'm not sure if he's paying his mom the amount that we agreed on, and suddenly my amount being paid is to cover every other expense: water, electricity, food, fuel, internet, and they're pressuring me to pay them more. I work minimum wage, so what I'm giving them is just over a third of my salary. They cook foods that I don't eat half the time, just foods they like. He's using the car to get around and wants me to put more fuel in it, or he won't take me to work. He doesn't want to pay for the insurance anymore, meaning I can't drive the car, and they won't let me cook my own food because they need the money for everything else. I had a talk with him and told him he was extremely misleading because if I had been told about all these extra things in the beginning before I moved, I would have had to reconsider. Like mentioned, I work minimum wage and I'm currently paying off debts, and I'm struggling because of how much they're asking from me. This all came to light when I asked if I can cook my own food next month because I need some extra bucks in my pocket to pay for Christmas presents and into my debts. I've been slacking on them due to giving them so much, and he said I was the jerk and selfish and ungrateful. I know I probably sound entitled, but fair is fair. I was promised I could drive myself to work. I was promised a certain amount for things. Now suddenly I can't drive the car and have to ask for permission to go to the shop to get a snack, and I have to put a pause on paying my debts because they won't let me cook my own food. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You are being financially mistreated, and you've been seriously scammed by your so-called boyfriend. Thank goodness that you are not married to him. Pack your bags and get out of there. Hopefully you have friends or family that will let you have the couch till you can get back on your feet again. Run. Nobody should be telling you that you can't cook your own food. This is your home, and if it's not, then what are you paying for? Run. The boyfriend is 45. Shaking my head. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend and his mom? Please let us know. Moving in with a 45-year-old guy who doesn't work or have any sort of income and lives with his mom, while you're the only one who works and you're gonna pay for everything. I mean, hey, what could go wrong with that? Am I the jerk for doing what my husband's ex wants and stepping back from my stepson? I'm 29 female. My husband, who's 34, has an 8-year-old son, Luca, from a fling that he had with Shayna. My husband and Shayna are not on good terms. She and my husband were never in a relationship but agreed to co-parent. However, Shayna got into a relationship with another man who did not want Luca in his home, and she decided to stop picking up Luca when he was about 1.5. I was introduced to Luca when he was 2, and we get along great. Luca and I share a strong bond, with me taking on sort of a parental role for him, and he started calling me mommy when I got pregnant. Being financially comfortable, my husband and I tend to spoil him a lot, and his clinginess has reached a point where he checks on me in the middle of the night since I'm now pregnant. The love and indulgence extend from my in-laws to my own family. He eagerly looks forward to Fridays at my parents' place for grandma's cooking and treats and gifts from grandpa. About a year ago, Shayna pretty aggressively came and tried to take custody of Luca. We were advised to give in to her demands, which turned out to be a mistake, and she has visitation every other Sunday now. Every time he has to go to Shayna's, he kicks and screams. He just doesn't want to go, and the one time we went with him, he told Shayna that he hated her. Shayna always thought Luca claiming to me was kind of creepy, so she brought in her mystery psychologist who suggested my family and I step back, blaming us for babying him and having zero discipline at home, even though he's totally different with us. My husband got suspicious about his conclusion, and we got our own therapist. We only had a few sessions, but she said our home situation seemed stable and loving. I was contacted by my sister's friend who also knows Shayna. She basically said the same as the psychologist. She really went in on me and basically said it was all my fault. I just agreed with them. I'm completely done with this situation. I just don't have the energy for it anymore. I'm 38 weeks pregnant and the baby will be here any day. I'm just done. Usually my husband and I do everything together for Luca. Against my husband's wishes, I decided to do what Shayna wanted and completely step back from Luca as a parental figure. Luca has not noticed anything and is completely fine. However, my husband, in-laws, and family are of course not happy with me. My mom literally comes to my home every day to talk to me about it. I just want to focus on having the baby and not constantly be blamed for everything I do for Luca. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. You're Luca's mom, at least to Luca. Regardless of whatever is going on outside of your house, you made a relationship with Luca and suddenly decided to pull away for no reason? How do you think that makes Luca feel? I can only imagine how hurt he is, especially if he's as attached to you as you say he is. To further that, he is now going to see you doting on baby and feel like he's been replaced, isn't worthy, and or both are just hurt. You're the jerk. If you were going to give up on the kid so easily, you should have never let him bond with you. As for biological mom and her friends that are saying things to you, take your financially comfortable selves back to court and get the custody agreement laid out in great detail, then stick to it. If bio mom is breaking it or communicating with you, herself or through others, take it back to court. She abandoned him, and now you have too. Jerk. Am I the jerk for calling my brother a sore, slow loser? My wife, Irene, is very fit. She likes working out and has a proper exercise regime, etc. She believes that if she feels good, she looks good, and she feels good working out, so who am I to stop her? My brother, Will, spent the latter half of last year going through a messy divorce and now needs a place to stay. Though my brother and I aren't very close, I figured he would only stay with us a couple of weeks until he got back on his feet. Will is a typical gym rat. He's always on a very strict diet, always working out and bragging about his gains. I've worked out with him a few times and he's a little obnoxious. He's always mad at you if you don't work at his pace and is always trying to correct your form. He's a pretty fit and muscular guy, but I don't like to exercise with him. Will has been pushing Irene to work out with him because, according to him, she won't be able to keep up with him. Irene mostly just shrugs him off with a laugh and tells him she would love to work out with him. Irene works out in the mornings, 3 times a week, and then does a run in the evening, but she's been busy this past week and hasn't been able to stick to her usual schedule. Will thinks that she's making excuses because she doesn't want to be embarrassed by him. Again, Irene just laughs him off. About 2 days ago, Irene and Will went on an early morning run. I didn't go with them, but the first thing I heard when Will entered the house was, "The only reason I couldn't keep up with you, Irene, is because you were sweating too much." I found this extremely comical and kind of just laughed him off. Irene rolled her eyes and went to take a shower, so I thought that the conversation would end. However, Will just kept bringing up my wife's sweat. My wife went to work and he told her, "Make sure you don't sweat through your clothes." Or when she called him in the middle of the day, he yelled, "Tell the sweaty jerk I said hi." Of course, the jerk comment aggravated me, and I told him to knock it off and stop acting like a kid. I thought that was the end of it, but he just kept going. By the end of the day, I was tired of his comments, but Irene seemed rather unfazed by him. When she served him food, he made a comment about her sweating into the food. At this point, I was at my wit's end, and I told him to stop acting like a sore, slow, referring to his running pace, loser, and eat his food. Will, of course, got angry and said the only reason he was going slower than usual was because he was distracted by my wife's unhygienic sweat. Irene looked a bit offended by this, and I told Will that I would kick him out if he made another comment like that. He's been super upset ever since. I jokingly told this story to a mutual friend, and they agreed with Will. Maybe I shouldn't be so harsh. Update: I didn't expect this amount of responses. Thank you all for the advice. I've decided to kick him out. He will be staying at a nearby hotel now. Not the jerk. Your mutual friend is a jerk too. When you're a guest, you act polite or get out. I can see why he's getting divorced if he thinks insulting the host is okay. OP: it rubbed me the wrong way when he insulted her when she was serving him. Like, why would you insult the person that made your food and is currently holding your food? We now know why the divorce happened and why it was messy. Wow, not the jerk. Won't approve my purchases? Okay, I can work with that. I was a one-man IT shop at a small manufacturer. I had been there for years. I was actually the third employee ever hired, and now the company was like 120 people. I was very frugal, but in smart ways. I got a lot done for little money and always was looking out for the company. The owner recognized and respected this. Anyhow, we had gotten big enough where I didn't report to the owner anymore, and I was assigned to report to an inexperienced accountant who got her degree from some sketchy online school. She was going to change the world. I used to be able to just buy anything I wanted because the owner knew whenever I asked for a company credit card that I had already done my homework and it would be good for the company. Well, now, if anything was over $500, I had to go through this process with her to justify it. It wouldn't bug me, except that she had no real business savvy or common sense. It was just painful to me to try and explain the most obvious things to her, and she would fight it just because of power tripping or something. Example, I was trying to justify having at least one computer loaded up and ready to go as a hot spare for when someone's broke. She balked at having $1,500 sitting on a shelf unused. I tried to explain that about once a month, someone's computer would break. All she could see was the $1,500 sitting unused most of the time. She couldn't understand the real cost of a broken computer, that the person could no longer do their job effectively, parts not getting ordered, jobs not getting expedited, emails not getting returned, me having to drop everything to react to this situation, overnighting in parts. The true impact cost to the company was several hundreds of dollars every month. She couldn't see that having a spare would pay for itself in half a year or so. After a half an hour of fighting over this, I had an epiphany. I handed her requisition approval forms to her, told her she was right, and left. Any purchases under $500 didn't need any approvals at all. Now, nothing I ever bought was over $500. I didn't buy a spare computer, I bought 3 as parts and assembled them into computers. Servers? Network storage? Why justify to a bean counter who wouldn't understand anyway? Just buy more parts and assemble yourself. Dual monitors for everybody, bought one at a time. Explain to her that toilets typically have less than 20% usage, but when you need one… Fun fact, the typical car only spends 6% of its life being driven around. The other 94% of the time, it's just an expensive paperweight. And when her computer finally breaks, tell her, sorry, we don't have a spare computer ready to go, so you'll have to wait while we fix this one. Should take about 5 to 10 days to get your computer working again. Shouldn't affect your productivity, right? I'm sure your supervisor will understand. My girlfriend is furious with me for not taking all of her daughters shopping. I'm 26, male, and my girlfriend, who's 33, is angry with me. I've been with my girlfriend just over a year, but we've known each other for about 3 years. We have mutual friends. She has 3 daughters who are 10, 13, and 14. The oldest daughter has a different dad than the younger 2. While the younger daughter's dad has contact with them and takes them every other weekend, the oldest daughter's dad hasn't been in her life since she was born. She and her daughters moved in with me after 3 months together, which I know might seem like it was too soon, but her housing situation wasn't great. She was living with a friend from work. I don't have any kids of my own, so I don't really know how to be a parent, but I've always tried my best to support my girlfriend in her parenting decisions. 2 days ago, I finished work early, so I picked the girls up from school. They usually take the bus, but I called my girlfriend after I finished work, and she asked me to pick them up. When we got home, I heated up dinner for them, and afterwards I asked them if they wanted to go shopping with me and grab some pizza afterwards. The youngest 2 didn't want to go. Their friend was coming over, so they decided to stay home, but the oldest daughter wanted to come with me. So I took her to the mall, bought her some clothes, a new phone case, and some other small things. Afterwards, we went to grab pizza. After the pizza, I wanted to drop her off at home. My girlfriend was already back home from work by then, as I needed to go to a rental property of mine to fix up a few things, but she said she wanted to go with me, so we did. She spent most of the time on her phone, and she tried on some of the clothes she bought and showed me. We came home around 9 p.m., and that's when the fight broke out. My girlfriend was really angry at me for only taking the oldest daughter and not her other 2. So I explained the situation about their friend coming over and that they didn't want to go with me. But she claimed I was favoring the eldest, which isn't true, as I wanted to take all 3 of them. We had a huge fight about it. It was our first serious fight. The oldest daughter stepped in my defense, but that didn't help. Since then, my girlfriend has been cold to me. I offered to take all 3 of them together another time, but she said she doesn't want my pity. and I don't really know how to fix things between us. Your girlfriend is being ridiculous and taking advantage of you. I agree. You sound like a truly awesome guy, and she has no clue how rare you are. You are not at fault, and the other two didn't want to go, and they had company coming over. You can take them separately, which is needed for multiple kids, so they get that one-on-one time with parents. She's being ridiculous. Don't back down from this when she engages about it. I would simply state, I'm sorry you don't see the true good intent in actions here, but I did exactly as any good adult or parent would in this situation on that day, and I will discuss this no further. And don't. She brings it up again, walk away. This kind of crap is why you don't move someone in after only 3 months. At only 3 months into a relationship, you shouldn't even have met her kids yet, let alone let them move into your home. A crappy home situation is not a good reason to move a girlfriend and her kids into your house. Buddy, you need to get out of this relationship as soon as possible. This woman will ruin your life if you stick around. Find the courage to leave and never look back. Man, you need a dose of reality, bro. A. This chick has 3 kids from 2 different dads, and you thought she was wifey material? Either those dudes realized what kind of a jerk she was and didn't want to put up with her BS, or she chose to leave them and take their kids away. Each time she was more jaded than before. B. Why you so desperate, bro? You don't have any kids, but you want to settle for a chick that has 3 of them, and you let them all move in after 3 months? I get that this chick must be hot, because there is no other reason anyone in the right mind would be as much of a sucker as you are. But you need to start being a bit smarter. C. She actually taught you a valuable lesson here. She wants your resources, bro. She's had many years of fun with lots of dudes and doesn't intend to stop. She just wants a provider like you, while she will still go out and hook up with hot guys, while you stay home and babysit. She wants the weak sucker who moves her in after 3 months, who she can use as an ATM, and you were the perfect candidate. Edit. Laughing out loud at everyone who's so upset about me pointing out the truth and calling out dude for being a moron. I'm betting most of you are single moms yourself, or dudes who have to settle for them. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. The things some people do for love. My fiance, 37 male, made me, 26 female, get plastic surgery just to get engaged. Now I want to call off the wedding. We've been engaged for 6 months now, and we're going to get married next spring. Our relationship has not been easy, and we dated for 2 years before getting engaged, and he broke up with me once in between for 5 months. Right now, I'm so conflicted. There was a time I was so eager to be engaged to him, and now I'm lost. First off, I kind of had to give an ultimatum to get engaged, to which he responded he has not proposed all this time because of something in my looks that he's not attracted to. He asked me to get a specific plastic surgery to correct this issue and that he would pay for it, and only then he's willing to get engaged. So I went ahead and got the surgery. Anyways, we get engaged, and I can still tell he's not that attracted to me because the surgery didn't really make a big difference. Doesn't compliment me, doesn't really touch me or initiate things with me. He doesn't complain or bash my looks, but doesn't rave about it either. But this isn't the worst of it. I'm currently in grad school, and he works full-time and makes over $500,000 a year. He's paying for the wedding, and he's rubbed it in my face on 2 occasions how I contribute nothing, and that I basically never have the right to complain about anything ever because he works so hard to pay for things. I complained once that I feel we don't spend enough quality time together. I just don't know if I'm making a huge mistake getting married to him. I don't want to be miserable. I'm so anxious. I don't feel like he loves me. He pushes me away when he's having a bad day and doesn't talk to me. I just feel kind of neglected in the relationship, but I also don't want to be a victim and consider maybe he's right about some things. Breaking an engagement off is so embarrassing, and this would be his 2nd broken engagement, and I don't want to do that to him. I just feel really lost. How do I go about this? Edit. The surgery I got was liposuction on my legs from thighs to ankles. I've always carried weight in my lower body. He says financially successful men don't like that look. Also, to those that ask what good qualities he has, I initially thought he was very kind, helps the poor, and goes on medical mission trips. He's a doctor. He is funny, and we actually get along really well when things are good. And I love his parents so much, and I really feel for them. They're older, and they want grandkids, and they want to see their son get married. I don't think they realize how mean he can be. I'm not going to pretend his money is not appealing. I didn't grow up with a lot of money, and I watched my parents struggle as immigrants. I always wanted to make sure my kids will grow up in a financially stable environment. It's not really gold digging because I'm not a materialistic person. I don't care for expensive things, just don't want to struggle like my parents did. To those who think I can get a prenup or divorce, our culture and community is very strict. I probably should have mentioned we are Middle Eastern. We don't get divorced. It's not an option here. He ended his first engagement, not her. He said she became too obsessed with the wedding planning and felt like a different personality of her had come out after she had secured the ring. Update. We broke up today, 48 hours after my initial post and over 1,000 people begging me not to get married. The wedding is off. This is how it went. He picked me up because we had our engagement photo shoot today. He has been depressed for over a month now over a real estate lawsuit that he started. He's already been putting me on the back burner because of this lawsuit and gives me zero attention, acts like I'm an added stressor in his life. So I'm already fed up with the mopey attitude. He starts going off about how he's not in the mood to take pics today, and that it's hard for him to smile, how drained and unhappy he feels over the house. I literally exploded. With everything that's happened, I couldn't take it anymore. I told him I've never met such a literal man-child in my life. For him to break down over a lawsuit he started. He's not fit to ever be the man, the sole provider of a family, to face real troubles of life. He's never had any real issues in his life. He is literally a man-child. I told him he never acknowledged how insane it is that I went and got surgery just for him to find me more attractive. He never recognized the care and sacrifice I made for him. I did take ownership for letting this relationship drag out as far as an engagement, after he showed me time after time how unfit he is to be a life partner. It is my fault. I ignored the red flags, and I kept having hope he would change one day. Maybe if I brought him a baby, he would start to appreciate me more. Maybe seeing me as a mother, he would start to love me. I'm so glad it didn't last long enough to find out. We didn't make it to the photo shoot, obviously. He ended up driving me back home. Sadly, we wasted the poor photographer's time. His reaction throughout all of this was very minimal. So cold. He would look down and look sad, but it looked like he was pretending. He said he was sorry and he thought I deserved better than him. He said his emotional battery had run out. This was the end of it. I gave him the ring back and told him we're never speaking again. He was just going to keep moving the goalpost. OP was never going to be good enough for him. Glad she got out. The ex should remain single since no one is going to fit his standards. He just wants someone to mold. This is based off the plastic surgery requirement and how it didn't make him happy. Also, does he not understand how people carry weight differently? He probably wanted OP to be like the wives of those successful men. Why do men date women a decade or more younger than them and then get mad that they're not on equal career footing to them? I mean, I know why. It's a built-in excuse to always have a means of making them feel bad about themselves. But logically, school and work take time, my guy. It's not magically gonna go faster for her than it did for you. Try dating a 37-year-old woman in your field. But something tells me you won't, because a doctor the same age as you with the same salary won't be nearly as easy to manipulate into getting surgery with some BS reasoning about whatever successful men are apparently attracted to. The fact that he was with a woman who didn't meet those requirements naturally kinda just shows you that he's not, by his own definition, a successful man. So congrats on failing, Doc. He's a career sociopath who wanted a trophy wife that he could control and mold. You, a senior citizen military veteran, can handle my hyperactive 7-year-old? Be my guest. This happened years ago with myself, a friend, my then boyfriend, and his daughter. We couldn't do much for toys for this particular Christmas, but our family was nominated for an event called Shop with a Veteran. It's where kids get to go in a Walmart with a veteran and can pick out their own Christmas gifts with a set amount of money donated by civilians and other veterans. The thing is, only the veteran can go in with them. I had later found out it was because some parents had earlier tried to persuade their kids to get things that were more catered to the parents or another kid instead of the kid who was nominated. My boyfriend's daughter was diagnosed with severe ADHD and had taken her medication, but she had gotten very excited when she found out about going to get Christmas gifts of her choosing. We found the lady hosting and explained to her about the daughter's ADHD and how she can be a whirlwind when she gets excited and how she doesn't like to listen to people she doesn't know. When we explained to the lady hosting the event that one of us should go in with his daughter just to make sure that she behaved, she understood and talked to the veteran who was going to do the shopping with her. He immediately argued, claiming he was tired of parents wanting to pressure their kids into getting things they didn't want, and he wanted the daughter to have a good time picking out her gift. The lady tried to explain the situation, but the veteran wouldn't hear any of it. I can clearly remember him grumbling at us, "I've been to war. I can handle a kid." Well, in that case, after the veteran took the daughter into the store, we saw two friends going in who we didn't know would be there, but they were happy to see them. My boyfriend caught up with them and asked one of them if they could keep an eye on the daughter and the veteran. My boyfriend then emphasized that the veteran clearly thought he could handle his daughter, so let him handle her. We waited for about an hour when the veteran returned with the daughter. She was grinning ear to ear at all the presents she was able to get. The veteran looked exhausted and like he had been through heck. He then yelled at us that the daughter was the most disrespectful brat he had ever met. How she had to touch all the toys and threw everything she wanted into the shopping cart, and she was a nightmare when he told her she couldn't have everything she picked out. My boyfriend packed his daughter's gifts in the car and then took her back inside to start our grocery shopping. We couldn't do it while she was in there with the veteran because we had to wait outside for when they were done so we could immediately take her and her gifts. Understandable, they weren't babysitters. I decided to talk to the veteran and told my boyfriend that I'd meet him inside. I asked him if he was okay. He said he was fine, but why didn't we tell him our daughter was crazy? I promptly corrected him by saying she was not crazy. I explained her ADHD to him and how we only wanted to go in with them so she would behave. We know that she knows to behave around us, school, and grandma's house, how she doesn't like to listen to strangers, even if we know them and she doesn't. I apologized and told him that not all parents want to go in to use this as an excuse to get their own gifts. Some genuinely just want to make sure their kids behave. Later in the store, our friend caught up with us and told us everything that had happened. The daughter had run up and down the toy aisles. She kept going back and forth from the toys to the cart, throwing in anything she could get her hands on. She even screamed at the veteran when he put some of the toys back. Typical behavior when her normal authority figures aren't watching. When she was satisfied with the toys she did get, she kept asking for candy at the checkout, which she asks anyone for when we go to the store. It was amusing to us that a grizzled military veteran was outmatched by a hyperactive 7-year-old. Since then, we've been better off, and we donate money to this event every year, and even toys for any toy drive they have. The veteran still does the event, but he's more understanding when certain kids need their parents with them. He does get the odd, pushy parent now and then, but he handles them rather than flat out denies all parents going in. I took my nephew to Toys R Us once. It was a nightmare. I had no experience with kids. Logic did not work. Asserting authority did not work. Threats did not work. Bribes didn't work. Tantrums were fierce. We could not exit the place without a full meltdown. I could not negotiate the highs and lows he was experiencing. We thought it would be a fun visit. It was terrible. Never again. The nephew did not have ADHD, just a normal kid who probably needed his parents in that environment. Am I the jerk for telling my husband's kids, who are 24 and 22, that my house isn't their family home? I married my husband 2 years ago. He has 2 kids, a daughter who's 24 and a son who's 22. He had a very nasty divorce from their mom that was fought out over the course of years. Part of the reason for the marriage ending was that she had an addiction problem and blew through their savings and was running up the credit cards he didn't know about to pay for it. The divorce finalized when the youngest was 16. She wanted the house in the divorce, which was a big part of the fight. She ended up getting it. She immediately moved in her addict boyfriend and another couple that they used with, and the house ended up getting destroyed and falling into foreclosure, and then they proceeded to squat in it and had to be forcibly removed. Because my husband and his ex ended up also having to file bankruptcy, he had been living in a friend's basement when I met him due to his credit being wrecked. Fast forward, we are married, he moves into my house, got a prenup. He can't be on the mortgage due to his credit anyway. His ex and kids are living with grandparents. His kids and his ex don't like me. They refer to me as that jerk, but at this point, they are all adults, so I'm not going to force anything on them. Grandparents recently had to sell their home and they're now living with their mom's friends. They asked if they could move in with us, and I said no. Both got angry and started telling me that this was their dad's home, and that makes this their family home too, and it wasn't up to me if they could live here or not. They started spouting off every insult they could think of. I interrupted them and told them it was in fact not their family home, and if they were looking for their family home, they need to go talk to their mom because she chopped it up and put it up her nose, and that wasn't my problem. A huge part of the reason I don't want them here is that their mom has since squatted at multiple places, forcing roommates to have to threaten her with eviction to get her out, and basically told the last one she would leave for a certain amount of money. The kids and her are very close, and I don't want that happening in my house. We also have reason to believe the oldest may be using. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Get cameras for your house in case you don't have them already, just to be safe. I can't believe they talk to you like that, but then expect to move in. No way. Am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law to take her darn cookies and get out of my house? My twin daughters are both 18 and they took their SAT last month. The results came back yesterday. One of my daughters, Laura, did very well. She got a 1540 and is very proud, as she should be. Her sister Emily didn't do so well. She got somewhere in the low 1300s, and I know that this is still not a bad score at all. But she worked very hard for the test and was really disappointed with her score. She has always struggled more with schoolwork than her sister, who does better without having to try as hard. Not to minimize any effort, Laura does work hard as well, but it does come a bit easier for her. My mother-in-law has always favored Laura, mostly because she does better in school. She won't show it very obviously, but in little ways. For example, she makes them a birthday cake most years and always writes Laura's name bigger and first. Emily resents this a bit, but doesn't mind too much as they rarely see their grandma. Only Laura regularly video calls with her and my husband. My mother-in-law called yesterday to ask the girls how they did. Emily said she didn't want to talk to her. She told me, not my mother-in-law, so I only gave the phone to Laura. Laura said her score, and her grandma congratulated her excitedly. My mother-in-law then asked Laura how Emily did. Laura said Emily did all right. When I got the phone back, my mother-in-law asked if she could come visit tomorrow to congratulate Laura. I said, let me check quickly if anything else is happening tomorrow, and I asked Emily if her grandma can come over to celebrate the results. Emily said that was fine, so I told my mother-in-law she could come over. My husband was at work when she came over. She brought a box of cookies and gave it to Laura, saying she was proud. Emily was standing there too and looked hurt. I asked if she had brought anything for Emily. She laughed a little and said not this time, but she'll make even better cookies when Emily does her retest. No one told her she was retesting. My mother-in-law just assumed. Emily went upstairs and I think she was crying. So I told my mother-in-law very sharply that she can take her darn cookies and get out. She was shocked and angry, but she left. Laura is also upset because she says she earned it and I'm ruining her relationship with her grandma. My husband says I had no right. Am I the jerk? I think you should sit your kids down together and separately explain. Grandma's favoritism is not okay. Someone who does better at school is not better as a person. Explain to both Laura and Emily that someone may simply do better at school, but this does not in any way mean they will be more or less successful in life. And explain to Laura how Grandma's actions made Emily feel. Also explain to Emily that Laura can and should be proud of her achievements, and that lastly, if Emily worked really hard, that's all you can ask for. Buy both of your daughters cookies, not the jerk. As a twin myself, and the Laura in this situation, you're the jerk. Laura speaks to her grandmother more often and has a closer relationship with her. Fact. Laura had better results. Fact. Her grandmother wanted to celebrate Laura, and you took that away. If you're not careful, Laura will grow up and continue to foster the relationship with her grandmother who celebrates her success, instead of the mother who refuses to celebrate her for fear of upsetting Emily. Emily will have to get used to her score and her options in life. That's reality, and you're not helping her manage that. I understand why you were upset with your mother-in-law, as she wasn't very compassionate in this situation, but I urge you to look at the way you're dealing with your kids. Treating them exactly the same now is setting Emily up for failure and Laura up for resentment. You're the jerk. Sounds like Laura makes more effort to be in Grandma's life, and Grandma returns the effort with her. If Emily wants to be loved the same, maybe she should put some effort forward too. You don't get to ignore Grandma and then cry when Grandma favors someone that does. My Karen coworker lies about being part Native American. Big mistake. I was speaking with coworkers and the topic of a nearby town came up. The town has a difficult to pronounce name, and my coworker made a comment about who the heck came up with that name anyways. I pointed out that it was a word from a Native American language. My coworker replied with, "Well, I'm allowed to joke about it then. I'm part Native American." My coworker appears very white. From what she's told me, her family has lived in the same rural area for years, and this is the first time she's mentioned anything about this. Curious, I asked her what nation she was from, and she said she had a Cherokee ancestor. I asked if she's registered with the Cherokee tribe, and she says no. I ask who the ancestor was, and she says her great-great-grandmother was a Cherokee princess. Here's where I might be the jerk. I'm white, and I know very little about Native Americans, but I do know that some people love to claim to be Cherokee without any evidence to back it up, and that the Cherokee Nation doesn't have princesses. I know this because my estranged aunt used to say the same thing, while everyone else in my family said they had literally never been told about any indigenous ancestry. A DNA test of another aunt proved this later on. So, and this is where I might have been rude, I tell her that the Cherokee don't have princesses, and she's probably wrong. She got really defensive and insisted it was true. I told her that a lot of white people claim to be Native, but they aren't, and that with DNA tests, there isn't really an excuse not to look into it. Needless to say, the vibe became awkward quickly, and this coworker has been ignoring me since and seemed upset with me. Another coworker said I should have just let it go and not said anything. My reasoning is, if she's going to say what she did, she better be darn sure it's correct. So, am I the jerk? Edit. This is probably my fault for how I wrote it, but I promise the conversation was very casual until the princess part. I was genuinely curious, and she seemed happy to share her answers. We aren't near the Cherokee Nation. I live in New England, and I know there are white passing people with indigenous heritage. Not the jerk. Man, that Cherokee princess thing never ends. How many princesses did they have to have so many people descended from them? The answer is 0, of course, but man, that doesn't stop anyone. The real reason the Cherokee ancestor keeps getting handed down is that it's a way to explain why this or that kid comes out a little bit darker than everyone else. Gosh, it must be that Cherokee princess that great-great-grandma was descended from. Soft, everyone sucks here. OP, it sounds like your heart is in the right place, and you admit to knowing very little about Native American history. That said, blood quantum is a very touchy subject, and I'd steer clear of it because you have no figurative or literal skin in the game. As a white-passing tribal member myself, my understanding is that DNA tests are often flawed because the indigenous sample set is far too small and potentially dubious in nature. I have the good fortune of a well-documented family history on my side, going back to just before the Trail of Tears. I'm not Cherokee, but a tribe that was originally from a similar area and often gets claimed by folks who are non-indigenous as well. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their coworker? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for wanting to divorce my husband because he wants a son? I, 27 female, have been with my husband who's 29 for 5 years, married for 3 of those years. Our marriage was perfect and we were so happy. It felt like our entire life was perfect. Church on Sunday, loving husband, beautiful home, all of it. A few months into our marriage, I became pregnant and my husband and I were overjoyed, and so was the rest of our family. My husband was especially happy after finding out that our baby was a boy, as he had always told me he wanted at least one son. I even started to try to attempt to repair my relationship with my mother so our son could have a relationship with his grandparents. I had originally cut off most contact with my mother due to how she treated my brother when he married his husband, though my brother said he was all right with my decision to try and get back in her life, since he still has love for her and my baby was her first grandbaby. However, our son ended up stillborn and it broke me. I fell into a deep depression, but my husband was there for me during all of it and we got through the grief. Our marriage felt stronger than ever and life started slowly feeling beautiful again, even if it no longer felt perfect. About 5 months ago, I found out I'm pregnant again, and then found out soon after that we're having triplets. My husband and I were over the moon, and he was the most doting and loving husband. Since we had always said we wanted 2 to 3 kids, we agreed we wouldn't try for any more after this. Because of our and our family's excitement for the triplets, we decided to throw a baby shower and gender reveal party. We trusted my brother with the genders of the triplets, and he bought some confetti cannons with the colored streamers inside. The baby shower went wonderfully with my parents, in-laws, my brother and his husband and their daughter, with tons of friends and extended family. It was like a dream come true, and I was so excited for the gender reveal. I don't care what the gender of our baby was, I just wanted healthy little babies, but my husband was clearly excited for potentially 3 sons. When the time came, me, my husband, and my brother all shot a confetti cannon, and all 3 of them shot out pink confetti. I was so excited, and so was my brother. But my husband screamed at the top of his lungs and he hit the table in front of us, hitting it so hard that it actually broke. He screamed at me that I was supposed to give him at least 1 son because what happened to the first one was my fault. That's when I burst into tears. I had been so broken up about that, and a part of me had felt it was my fault, And now my husband was, the love of my life, telling me that it was. My brother immediately stepped in and tried to get my husband to calm down, but my husband shoved my brother. So my brother instead pulled me aside, where I cried in the living room while my husband's mother tried to calm him down. I could hear him screaming outside about how 3 daughters is too many, how he doesn't want 4 kids, but he also wants a son. Ever since that moment, my husband has hardly talked to me. He's been sleeping in the guest room, and when we do interact, he's clearly upset and mad and tries to argue with me. I tried to talk to him about it and asked how he'll be with our 3 daughters, but he yelled and told me that he will provide for them shelter and food, but he isn't interested in having them and doesn't plan to have a close relationship with them. That sealed the deal, and I want to divorce him, and I cried myself to sleep that night. Earlier today, I confided in my mother and my mother-in-law about all of this, but they told me I can't divorce my husband just because he wants a son. I don't want my daughters to grow up in an unloving household where their parents constantly argue and their father doesn't love them. The moment my husband said it was my fault what happened to our son, I lost all love I had for him in an instant, and I don't want my daughters to be in that kind of a household. However, both my mom and mother-in-law say it's just natural for men to want sons, and that at least he isn't saying he'll mistreat them. They treated this as absolute fact and acted as if I'm being silly and I just don't know anything. I felt incredibly small and stupid. I don't know what to do. My mother and mother-in-law make me feel like I may be overreacting to my husband's behavior, but my brother says this is not normal as he and his husband are both men who absolutely love their daughter. I'm also not sure of what I'll do with myself if I divorce my husband. I don't work, and I'm not sure how I'll be able to find a job that can support me and 3 babies all on my own, or how I'll make time for all of them when I have to work. I feel so lost and helpless. I'm torn on what to do because I worry divorce will be too brash of a decision and that maybe my mother and mother-in-law are right. Am I the jerk? What should I do? First, stop sharing your feelings on this and your plans on this with your mother-in-law and mother. They made you feel like you're wrong. This guy says he isn't going to care for them right. He blamed you for the baby. You can't stay with this guy. If you get pregnant again, no guarantee it would be a boy. What then? He meant everything he said because he still isn't talking to you. Think about it. He treated you this way over something you have no control over. Chew on that for a bit. Stop talking and listening to them. You cannot stay with him. You have to know that. Not the jerk. You're not divorcing him because he wants a son. You're divorcing him because he said some truly unforgivable things. I'm so sorry about your son. Please know it wasn't your fault. Your husband is truly vile to say what he did, and that alone is grounds to end your marriage. Good luck, OP. Not the jerk. I would sleep with one eye open knowing that dude is in the other room thinking weird thoughts like that. I'd also move far away now and change my name. He ain't normal. Am I the jerk for refusing to share my inheritance with my dad and brother after discovering a family secret? My grandma, my dad's mom, left me, 27 female, my dad's portion of her inheritance, but left him and my brother, who's 30, nothing. For context, me and my brother have never met my granddad. According to my dad, he and his father had a very toxic relationship. After my dad and my mom met, they started dating in university and they had my brother. My parents then got married, which made my grandpa stop talking to my dad. A couple of years later, they had me, and we've been living happily ever after. After my grandpa passed, my dad began to spend more time with his mom. We got to also spend more time with her, and we even spent Christmas holiday at her house. She was this sweet old lady who just loved us so much. Her energy was so electric and contagious. I'm not lying when I say that Christmas as a teenager was my most favorite cherished times. Sadly, my grandma passed last year. After her funeral, I and my 2 aunties were called to speak to a lawyer. She had a house worth more than £500,000. For context, she lived near Oxford, and over $200,000 worth of cash and other heirlooms. When we went through the inheritance, the lawyer explained that she divided it into 3 equal parts. It was between her 2 daughters and me, who got my dad's share of the inheritance. She left her son nothing. When my dad found out, he protested and asked how that was possible, but I wasn't too concerned. During the proceedings, my grandma's lawyer, who was in charge of the inheritance, gave me a letter written by her a year ago. In this letter, to be read after her passing, she explained that her husband, my grandpa, had disowned my dad completely. This is because my dad is not my brother's actual father, as he's a child from a previous relationship my mom had. My dad met my mom when she was pregnant with my brother. My grandparents, my granddad in particular, thought this was extremely weird. He did not approve of this and was vehemently against it. My dad didn't listen and married my mom a year after my brother was born, which prompted my grandpa to excommunicate him for good. During the years, my grandma stayed in contact with my dad, but we, my brother and I, did not meet her until after my grandpa passed. The thing is, neither my brother nor I knew that my dad wasn't his biological father. A day later, my dad called me to discuss the inheritance, but I didn't want to meet him. He doesn't know that I know, and I don't know how to tell him that I know. I haven't received any money yet, but based on this, I feel like I will not share it. My family are understandably calling me greedy, but I just don't really trust them anymore. This is already causing huge division in my family, and now I feel like dropping this news will destroy my family completely. Should I just be truthful about the reasoning, or what should I do? Not the jerk. First of all, you are not the jerk about the inheritance no matter what you decide. Your grandma had a clear reason for what she did, so it's not like there's any funny business that would make her will invalid. Secondly, it sounded like you're struggling with the info your grandma shared, and that's completely fair because it's a lot. I have some thoughts. What your dad did, choosing your mom even though she was already pregnant, and raising your brother so well that you never even suspected, that is an amazing act of love. I understand that it upset your grandpa, but from my perspective, your dad is the real hero here, loyal to your mom and loyal to your brother. I would hate it if you came out of this blaming your dad or blaming your brother, neither of whom did anything wrong. I think it's really sweet that your dad and grandma managed to reestablish their relationship after your grandpa passed. Should you tell? I don't know. In general, my instinct is that secrets fester. Now that you know this, it's going to be hard for you to hide your strong feelings. Also, keep in mind that everyone in your family knows, at this point, except your brother. Raising the topic might be hard, but reread my previous paragraph about what a loyal hero your dad is. He loved your brother because he chose your brother, along with your mother. I kind of feel like your brother deserves to know. Finally, you don't need to decide about the money right away. Your grandma dropped a crazy amount of information on you, and it's completely reasonable for you to want a while to process. You could even tell them that. As a general rule, when you get a big chunk of money, there is no hurry. You can leave it in cash for a while. You can invest in safe mutual funds. I like Vanguard. No harm in letting it sit for a year or 2 or 3 while you figure things out. People who are all excited to do something right away typically make bad decisions. What? Good man gets disinherited for being a good man, and you think OP isn't the jerk for continuing a level of spite so vicious it's reaching out from beyond the grave to inflict more harm? Yeah, OP is just a greedy jerk and is simply looking for a reason to justify keeping the money. The grandparents were trash, tried to ruin their son's family from beyond the grave, and OP is siding with them. Even worse, I wouldn't be surprised if Dad wants to talk about the inheritance, not even for himself, but to ensure the brother gets something. The brother probably feels like crap and is confused why he was left out of the will. Well, what would you do if you were OP? Would you share the inheritance or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for telling my husband his parents can't stay for 5 days? I, 25 female, told my husband, who's 28, that Wednesday to Sunday was too much for his parents to stay just for Thanksgiving. He said that was unfair because he doesn't get to see them often. For context, his parents live about 2 hours away, and he could literally see them whenever he wants to. His parents also have a history of visiting and extending their stays without asking. Additionally, he claimed it isn't fair because we see my parents so frequently, who only live about 20 minutes away in the next town over, which I felt was unrelated as I never pressure him to see my parents. Most times I go see them or spend time with them alone, and he has the option to join or not. I tried to explain that it isn't a competition or personal slight against his parents. I just don't want company for that long, especially when that would be the entire time I have off from work. I've been working long hours lately, and I was excited about time off to just decompress, which was a big part of me bringing this up. Long story short, he thinks I'm being unfair and should let them stay for however long they like. So, without more rambling, am I the jerk for this? Edit. Just wanted to answer some recurring questions I keep seeing. I deep clean before they come, and I do the maintenance cleaning while they're here. I usually just ask him to make their bed and to get them clean towels. I cook nearly every time they stay and handle the groceries, and he may cook a breakfast or a dinner for one of the days, but sometimes he cooks more. He does not inform me of their plans and never has. He might casually mention they're coming to stay the week of, but never says for how long or in advance. This has happened several times. This is the first time I've ever asked them to stay for a shorter time. They're still very much welcome. I just ask that they leave Friday or Saturday morning at the latest. Not the jerk. This isn't about how much you see each other's parents. It's about having them in your home for so long. You'd be trapped with them. This is the time that you're going to be off from work? That makes it even worse. Agreed. Hubs can go visit them for 5 days, and OP comes on Thanksgiving. Or as others mentioned, they can stay at a hotel. I bet if OP doesn't conveniently go on a last-minute trip or stay with family for a few days, in-laws will decide last minute to extend their stay to 1 week or longer. And I bet OP will have to do all of the hosting. Rather generous of Hubs to not worry about in-laws staying when he doesn't have hosting responsibilities. Do Thanksgiving, then go stay in a hotel Friday through Sunday. Sleep, read, get room service, and relax. Not everyone is in a financial position to stay in a hotel for a few days though. Then stay at her parents. Solved. Info. Have you presented the idea of them getting a hotel nearby for those days? It can be daunting having guests stay in your home for long periods, but it sounds like he misses his family and wants to spend time with them. It's understandable if he doesn't see them very often. Not the jerk. 5 days, your entire time off, is too long for people who only live 2 hours away. You have a husband problem. Letting his parents decide how long they'll stay is not good. Not the jerk. My husband used to try pulling this same crap with me, but I put my foot down at the beginning of our relationship. I told him no overnight visitors, no matter what. Well, the first time he told me his parents were coming to spend the weekend, I said okay. Took myself to the Hilton and had a relaxing mini vacation, courtesy of his credit card. You may pay the mortgage, but this is my house too, and if I don't want anyone staying overnight, they won't be. He learned his lesson quick, and his mom even texted me apologizing for intruding. She said she didn't know how strongly I felt about them not coming over because my husband hadn't said anything about it. I told her, gee, maybe if you'd talked to me about it like a normal person, instead of your mama's boy son, then you would have known I have no desire for you to stay over. She didn't text back, shocker, but of course she complained to my husband about me being rude, like I was in the wrong. I made him cut contact with him after that, and we haven't spoken to them in the past 6 years. They send Christmas cards, but when I'm the one who finds it in the mail, I just trash it without telling hubby. You go, girl. I know the pain of dealing with a man-child who wants mommy and daddy to stay overnight. I didn't go to the Hilton when my in-laws came over, but I did go stay at a work friend's house. He is a guy, but we are just friends and have never been anything more than platonic. Call me petty, but just to spite my husband, I said very clearly in front of his parents, there's TV dinners in the freezer. I'll be at Arnold's all night and should be back tomorrow around noon. His parents didn't say anything, but I could see the confusion on their faces. I know he had fun explaining that one to them, since boomers think we as wives should not have male friends. Some of these comments are just, ew. Why even marry a man if you're going to treat him like this? And why would these guys stay married to you if this is how you act, when he doesn't bow down to your every wish? Couples are supposed to work through their problems together, not pull this kind of crap. Sometimes I feel bad about being nearly 40 and still never married. But when I see this kind of stuff, I think I might be the lucky one. Am I the jerk for telling my friend's boyfriend that he shouldn't have been allowed to eat? Some friends and I decided to do the trend where we have a dinner and everybody brings a food that starts with the first letter of their name. There is one of our friends who's a bit of a moocher. Whenever we go out, she never pays for stuff, whether it's the dinner bill, tickets for the movies, etc. We always end up paying for her. But everyone accepts this and doesn't really have an issue with it. However, recently, it's become worse. She's been dating this guy for a couple of months and she brings him everywhere with her, even when he's not invited. So now we have 2 people to pay for. Also, I feel like I have to say that they have jobs. They're not struggling. It would be different if they were broke. Then of course I wouldn't mind. But yeah, we had the dinner last night and everybody brought food and put a lot of effort into it. These 2, however, showed up with absolutely nothing, not even a bottle of soda. We were annoyed, but nobody said anything. It wasn't until the end of the night when they were leaving that I cracked a little. The friend's boyfriend was taking home all of the barbecue ribs that were left. I repeat, all of the barbecue ribs. And it was a lot. Like, dang, be considerate at least. He emptied the entire tray of ribs into a container. That's when I politely asked, can you maybe not take all of it? The others might want some too. He got all defensive and asked, why are you treating me like I'm stealing all the food? I clarified that I never said such a thing and that I only asked that he didn't take all of it. He got angry, plopped the ribs back, and said, "Fine, I don't need your food." To which I replied, "It kind of seems like you do. And to be honest, you shouldn't have eaten at all since you didn't contribute anything, as usual." Then my friend came, took him, and just left without saying anything. Now apparently she's angry with us, mainly me. Most of my friend group doesn't think I did anything wrong, but there are a couple who are saying I shouldn't have said anything. The thing is that I didn't even say anything to my friend because I don't mind that she doesn't contribute. Her boyfriend was the one irritating me. He eats the most food but doesn't contribute, drinks the most alcohol, doesn't contribute, orders really expensive meals at restaurants, doesn't contribute towards the bill. I guess I kind of got annoyed and snapped at him. I tried phoning her to clarify that I don't have any issue with her, but she's ignoring me. I don't know, maybe I should have just left well enough alone. You're not the jerk for this event, but why on earth do you and your friends tolerate them mooching like that? Tell them they need to pay their own way and do it. If you go to a movie, buy your own tickets and let them pay or leave. Get separate checks at restaurants. When the server first comes to the table, tell them you'll need separate checks. As a former restaurant employee, I can tell you that it's fairly easy to split a check if you know it'll be split before you start entering things, and a royal pain to go back and split a check you entered together. You and your friends have been complete doormats. When you let bad behavior repeatedly go unchallenged, it never stops and often worsens. Honestly, I would stop inviting them to join y'all. You all have created a mooched monster by not putting a stop to her behavior ages ago, but it's time. She's an adult and needs to pay her own way, not the jerk. Were you born a doormat, or did your parents teach you to be a doormat? Nature or nurture? I'm always curious. You know what? You're the jerk. By submitting and accepting their horrible behavior, you're only encouraging it and reinforcing it. These people are not your friends. They are users and you allow it. Grow a spine. Colleague thinks she's the big boss. This happened a few years ago. I was working for a company doing special projects that had to do with building certain products. One Friday evening, I get a call from the CFO. This guy never called me before. I didn't even know he had my number. Who liked playing at project management sometimes. He tells me that there's been a huge mistake in the project. I ask him if it was a project I was involved in. No, it had nothing to do with me, and they desperately needed people to come in on Saturday and Sunday and work, because this project needs to be delivered to the customer on Monday morning, and would I be able to go? I say sure. In this company, any work on Saturday and Sunday was overtime from the first minute, and the overtime rate was good. He told me I would be joined by 5 of my colleagues, almost all of them a delight to work with, and one more person that is also a colleague, but has all of the information regarding this project, so she would lead it and tell us what's needed to be done. Let's call her wannabe genius boss lady, in a cynical way of course. She is not in any way, shape, or form a genius. Everybody working on this project has at least 3 years experience in the company. Some have more than 10, so there wasn't any need for a babysitter. This fact matters for the rest of the story. Saturday morning rolls around and I get to location. We all meet and have some coffee and homemade cookies that my wife made for us. Genius comes in, asks us to gather around, and explains that this project was done wrong from the get-go. The company spent hundreds of man-hours on it, and it was all done wrong. And we have 2 days to not only disassemble everything that was put together, but redo it from scratch in the correct manner, which not only involved putting it back together, but also refabricating parts that were done wrong. Then she goes on to say in these exact words, "I'm your boss. You do what I say. I have the schematics in my hand. If you don't know something, ask me, and I'll tell you how to do it." We all look at each other with a puzzled look, but we just shrug our shoulders. Then she quickly, and I mean quickly, lays down some rules that she wants us to follow. Stupid things that just interfere with our jobs, but no one actually caught all of them. So we start working. Like I said, we are all experienced. We work in another facility that the company owns, and we're brought especially to fix this facility's mistake. All through the job, Genius does nothing except get in our way, asking stupid questions, drinking coffee, taking smoking breaks, treating people badly, and making up stupid rules as she goes. At some point, the CFO comes in and starts talking to me, and in the conversation, he says these words, "No matter what, no one works overtime. No more than 12 hours a day, no matter what." Because it's a Saturday, the rules allow us to work up to 12 hours, but more than that, and the company can get fined. Genius promises the CFO that the job will be done no matter what within those 2 days of 12 hours. Saturday's work is done after 12 hours and we all say goodbye and leave, coming back the next day. We get to work again with her making the atmosphere worse and worse by the minute, not trusting us when we say we're going to do something, hovering over us, and generally being a nuisance. As the day goes by, we can see that we are not going to make it on time. We try to tell her that, but she's adamant that this will be done on time. I tried to explain to her a few times that seeing how much work there is and her insisting we do not use automated tools, it's not possible to finish this in the 5 or 6 hours we have left. There was a lot more crap that she tried to pull, but I won't name all of it just to save time. She won't hear it. She says the job will be done. I'm like, whatever, dude. I'm just gonna do what I can since you won't listen. 1 hour before end of day comes around, we've all been working for 11 hours. Genius finally realizes it's not going to work. She calls a real project manager, her friend, and starts talking to him. I hear her talking on the phone, and she's blaming us for not working fast enough, and tells him she promised the CFO to have this done. I'm assuming she was betting on riding this success into a promotion or something, and she doesn't know what to do. Then she walks out of the building and continues talking out of earshot. After a few minutes of conversation, she comes back in, telling us to round up again so she can talk with us. With fire in her eyes, she goes, "Okay, you," points at a guy. "Don't leave until this," points at one of the parts of the project, "is done. You," points at me. "Don't you leave until that part is done." And she continues doing this until she counted off everybody. And then she walks off, I'm assuming for another coffee or a smoke break or whatever. Cue malicious compliance. Exactly 12 hours after arriving, we all put down our tools and start heading out the door. She's shocked, asking us, "Where are you going?" We all say we're going home. We've been here for 12 hours. She says, "I told you that none of you leave until your parts are finished and tested." To which we reply, "No more than 12 hours, no matter what," and we leave. Later on, I found out that she stayed by herself until 4 in the morning to finish it all by herself. She couldn't do it and had to go home as well. Her project manager friend came in that morning to help her finish the job. The project was late, customer came in to pick it up and wasn't happy to see it was still not packaged and ready to go. Just as a side note, with the exception of Genius, I've known each of the people working on this project for a few years. All of them would gladly have stayed longer to help finish the project. They've done this so many times in the past when called upon, if she hadn't treated us that way. We made sure to make management aware of this, and she was never given another opportunity to manage something. Karen demands Christmas dessert samples. Context. For every holiday, my mother would ask the women in the family, my sisters, sister-in-law, my wife, my female cousins, to send samples of the desserts they planned to bring to the celebration for testing and to see if these desserts could make it to the food menu. My wife has been complaining about my mother deliberately rejecting every dessert sample she sent. So many times, my mother has told her that she's being honest and keeping the guests' best interests at heart. Yet, my wife still thought that my mother was deliberately excluding her since 2 of her dessert samples were rejected before. For this year's Christmas, my mother is doing the same thing, but this time, she told every woman who's participating to make a cookie sample and send it to her for testing. My wife took it as a challenge, and to be honest, she worked really hard to make a good sample and sent it to my mother days ago, and the results just came in yesterday. I came home from work and found my wife upset. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me that my mother rejected the sample she sent and decided to exclude her from baking from the menu list and the menu for Christmas this year. I didn't know what to say, but then she told me that she was backing out of the invitation to attend Christmas with my family. I was stunned when I heard her make this statement. I tried to talk to her, but she said it was done. I called her unreasonable to decide to bail on the whole family over some cookie sample. That's just crazy and quite unreasonable. We had a full-on argument about it, and she stated that my mother caused this, but I told her that my mother is pretty serious and careful about the food she offers to the guests, since we are going to have relatives coming from all sides of the country. She told me to stop mentioning it. Later, I heard her cry, despite telling her that her baking is amazing and people have preferences, that's all. Am I the jerk for insisting that her decision was unreasonable? Info. If you're asking whose cookie sample made it to the menu, the answer is my sister and my 2 cousins. Info. A few things to put on here. 1. My wife wasn't the only one whose sample was rejected. We have sister-in-laws, my brother's wife, and my younger sisters. My mother did not force anyone to participate. It was up to whoever wanted to take part. 3. This is just about the dessert since my mother tends to be very careful in this category, but for other types of foods, dishes, appetizers, salads, stuff like that, it's all welcome, as she stated. Update. Great, so I just got off the phone with my brother and he told me that his wife is doing the same thing as my wife and that she has decided to back out of the invitation to spend Christmas with family as well. Turns out my wife must have told her about her decision and she decided to follow her lead. My brother is upset, saying my wife is encouraging his wife to do this. I see that the problem has just gotten bigger now. Who knows, my younger sister might join in and decide not to go as well. I don't know how this got out of control so quickly. I guess we'll try to have a discussion with my mother about this and see how it goes. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but for years and years, your mother has demanded that all the women, why not the men too, in your family send in samples. For years and years, your wife has tried her hardest to appease your mother, had pushed herself to the limit, and has been left completely and utterly demoralized each and every time by a humiliating tradition enforced by the holiday tyrant. And, even worse, her shame was publicly put on display each and every year as other family members would no doubt notice that, once again, her food was not chosen. Finally, after producing something she was unbelievably proud of, she was once again left embarrassed and most likely deeply hurt, as she was deemed not good enough for yet another year. This is the straw that broke the camel's back, and she decides she's had enough of her humiliation and that she will not give her cruel mother-in-law the satisfaction of seeing her discomfort on such a big day. She makes a boundary that many would have made a long time prior, and her husband tells her she's unreasonable for setting up boundaries? Dude, come on. You know you're the jerk. You're the jerk. I'd never in a million years bake samples to be approved. I'm showing up with my food. Eat it or not, I really don't care. Your mom is the jerk and very, very weird. You're the jerk. Your mom is also a jerk who takes samples in and makes others feel bad because of their cooking. This tradition sucks, and I get why OP's wife doesn't want to go. Not the jerk. Did y'all read at all? Yes, she asks all the women, but it's always a yes or no thing. You either want to or you don't. Simple. This only happens in the dessert category, and you can bring whatever for any other category. She doesn't care. This idea is good because it saves the wife from even greater humiliation when she says it's good, but it's not, and she brings it to the function and no one eats it. If her food isn't good, why should everyone be forced to eat it? She can literally bring something else that isn't dessert. The mother is being honest and not biased because obviously other people were not chosen. Like, I've been to so many functions, and there's always that one plate of utter rubbish, and my mother would tell us to always try it, so the owner of the plate doesn't feel bad. Not the jerk. And your wife should stop sending samples. Your wife is married to you, not your mom, and you cannot get mad if she stops sending samples either, because it's clearly a waste of time since it's likely going to be like the same 2 to 4 family members. Keep it real, you know this. I understand the pride because she wants to feel included, but it's been 3 times and it's a blow mentally. Definitely get your wife an extravagant gift for Christmas and let it be known it's for all the delicious cookies she's giving you all year long. Cookies like love, care, passion, etc. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP and his mom or his wife? Please let us know. Just let people bring what they want. His mom's really overcomplicating this. Am I the jerk for telling my dad that I'll gladly spend Christmas with him if he gives me back my college fund as a Christmas gift? To make this brief, I, male 32, had issues with my dad after my mom passed and my stepmom came along. I hated a lot of decisions that were made, but what has left a long-lasting impact was taking my college fund to pay for my stepbrother's surgeries. Unfortunately, he's passed on. He passed last year at the age of 16 from a chronic heart problem. I keep my distance, but still see my grandparents and uncles and aunts, cousins, etc. With the holiday season coming up, Dad started talking to me through some relatives, close relatives. He went on about his overwhelming feelings of loneliness, his upcoming divorce, and invited me to spend Christmas with him because he's alone and heartbroken. As a response, I told him I'll gladly spend Christmas with him if he gives back my college fund in a form of a Christmas gift. He and the others didn't like my response. He thought this was harsh, and my relatives said that I was a judgmental, petty, greedy jerk to say this to him after he's lost so much. They said he did all he could to save his stepson, my stepbrother, which they described as noble and that he doesn't owe me a thing. I went home after a big argument with my uncle who came at me for what I said. Now I feel like crap. Maybe I should have just calmly, politely declined the invitation and not said this to him and made him feel guilty for how he handled my stepbrother's situation. Edit. I just took a look and I see that I'm getting a ton of comments here. To answer a few questions. 1. The fund was made by my dad. Mom was a stay-at-home mom and didn't work, but they both agreed that this fund would go towards my education. 2. I was able to get in college. I started working to pay my way and had some relatives help, but my uncle did so much for me, which is why I said I felt bad when he berated me. He holds a special place in my life, and he's the last person I want to disappoint or let down. Edit 2. Okay, for those who are saying the fund wasn't mine, whose fund was it then? I really don't get this. Maybe you can expand on how exactly the fund wasn't mine and to whom it belonged. Also, for those that think I'm being cruel to my dad after he lost so much, I try not to go out of my way to be mean or malicious. Matter of fact, I want little to nothing to do with him, but all this time, I've been playing nice to please my uncle and relatives, but that's it. Info. Where did the money in the college fund come from? Was any of it from your late mother? Because if it was 100% of your dad's money, that's very different than if he spent money your late mother set aside for her own kid's education on his new stepkid. Regardless, I think the problem is that your dad didn't prioritize you until he was lonely and now he wants your company. The college fund is a symptom of that, and it's not fair for dad to brush it under the rug. Edit, because people are misunderstanding. I'm not saying a stay-at-home mom doesn't contribute. Knowing this information, I believe that half of whatever was saved during OP's mother's lifetime was her contribution and should not have been spent by his dad. What I meant to get at with my question was to see if it was money that dad had saved up after mom's passing, for example. This is such a difficult situation. I do feel for OP, but I also understand dad's position, and I'd hope that OP eventually finds it in his heart to forgive dad. But honestly, if this is happening in the USA, then this country's horrendous healthcare and higher education systems are 100% at fault. They leave folks with debt and bankruptcy, and often with impossible choices to make. I'm so sorry for OP and his dad. No jerks here. Yeah, I can't get on board with OP's line of thinking about the college fund. Was his father supposed to let his stepson pass so OP can go to college and be debt-free? Not even a close choice for OP's father, in my opinion. I'm hoping OP is just young, and one day he'll see how difficult the situation was. Not the jerk. I don't understand these "you're the jerk" comments. There was a college fund in place, and it was used for someone other than you. Definitely not the jerk. Dad used the college fund to try to save someone's life. That's not a jerk move, it's a desperate father move. Like someone else said in another comment, Dad prioritized issues, not the kids. And he was the one that set up the fund. He did not use any inheritance left by OP's mom. Sorry, OP, but you're the jerk. I'm going to get hate for saying this. I'm shocked at how many people will say people don't have to split or give a college fund to a step-sibling, but will tell you that you're the jerk for being upset. Your step-sibling had 2 parents, you had 1. That parent took from your figure and prioritized his wife's kid and hung you out to dry. Would it have been nice to give them the money to save your step-sibling? Maybe, but that's not the question. Your parents or dad set aside money for you, and then your dad and stepmom used it on someone else. Your dad is a complete jerk to prioritize another kid over his own. Once it's set aside for your education, it's no longer his money to take back and definitely wasn't your stepmom's to use. Your dad's bad decisions are coming back to bite him. Now he's lonely because of his decisions, and I don't blame you for telling your dad exactly what he needs to do now to have you back in his life. Not the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his dad? Please let us know. I think what parents should do is not tell their kids about the college fund until it's time to spend it. That way, if an emergency comes up and they have to use part of it, their kid won't get mad at them. My girlfriend of 7 months won't allow my parents to move in with us, even though I own the house that we live in. My girlfriend, Alice, who's 34, and I, 34 male, have been together for a while now. Although we're not married, we both live in my house. We were discussing marriage options though. The thing is, my parents are getting older, and I've recently moved to the USA. I wanted them to remain together with me, and so did they. I offered to bring them over here, and they were agreeable to the idea. But I didn't want to leave them alone or to just get a house for them like that, so I asked them to live with me. When Alice heard about this, she was against the idea. She said that I can't just invite someone else to live with us, and I told her that it was not just someone else, and that we're talking about my parents. She said that she does not want that and asked me why I'm even doing it. I told her, well, they're my parents and I want to look after them. I'm not asking you to do that either. She protested by saying that I'm valuing my parents more than her and asked me to just get them to an old age home or something. I lost my temper at that and told her to mind her own business and that it's against my values to just abandon my parents once they get old. It resulted in a full-blown argument, and in the end I told her, I get to decide who lives in my house, so don't interfere with my affairs. She's now sour with me and is not talking to me, but I wonder whether I did anything wrong. Am I the jerk? Edit. I told her about it to discuss it with her, in the sense that I let her know beforehand in advance, so that she could prepare for it and to also get her opinion, but she was against it from the very beginning. But as they are my parents, I did not want her approval per se, if that makes it clear. And no, she doesn't pay the rent. She's from the same culture as I am and has taken care of her parents before. Not in the same way I did, but she's done a lot for them herself. Another edit, as some deemed it necessary. We've been together for around 5 to 7 months. You completely dismissed your girlfriend's feelings, and you wonder if you're the jerk? Yeah, you are. It may be your house. That may give you the raw power to authorize your parents to stay, but your partner has wants, desires, and needs and feelings too. And it would be a huge shock to suddenly go from living with a partner to living with them and their parents. You didn't even discuss it. You just decided you had the power to do it, and you did it. Then you basically told her to shut up when she voiced concern. It may very well end up being you living with your parents with no girlfriend in the picture. I'd certainly have serious doubts about committing to a future with someone whose attitude is that if they have the power to do something they want to do, then they're just gonna do it, and I can go buzz off. You're the jerk. Yes, it is technically your house, and your feelings are understandable, but the fact that you're moving two people who will need a certain level of care into the house that you share with your partner, there was no discussion, and apparently there's no room for compromise. I doubt you would have done this to a roommate, much less a serious romantic partner. You can move your parents in, but I'd expect your girlfriend to move out, especially if you come from a culture where the automatic burden of care goes to the female members of the household. Dude, she's gonna dump you and move out. You may not be wrong about deciding who can live in your house, but you're definitely the jerk about it, and you're going to destroy your relationship. You're the jerk. Also, you may have wanted to hear her opinion, but it's clear that whatever her opinion is doesn't matter to you because your mind is made up. Not the jerk. Good thing you hadn't married her yet, or she'd be divorcing you and taking half your stuff. It's your house, my guy. She owns no part of it. There is no reason for you to require her permission at all. All you have to do is tell her, I've decided my parents are moving in with me on this date. Hopefully you'll be cool with that, but if not, I understand and we'll have to go our separate ways. Like, you've been dating her for 6 months. Reddit is crazy for thinking you need to discuss this and get her permission before making your decision. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. How dare he bring his parents to America and allow them to live with him when his girlfriend of 6 months isn't okay with it? Careful now, Karen. You know some people are going to get ticked off at you for agreeing with OP. They can be as ticked as they want. It's his house and they've been dating for 6 months. Karen refused to pay me for my work, so I sued her. This happened several years ago. I was working 40 hours a week programming at my main job, but I did occasional small projects in the evenings and on weekends for other clients. At one point, I was referred to a large company that runs major stadiums and event venues around the country. One of their stadiums is relatively close to where I live. I'll just call them Mark 1 for this story. The saga begins. This manager at Mark 1 said they wanted a simple administration database and user interface for employee timekeeping. Apparently, the old system they had was not working for them. I got details of what they wanted and drafted a set of specifications. Told them I could write the system to the specs for $2,000 flat fee. They agreed. I immediately went to work and I turned out a database and UI for the system with full documentation in about 2 weeks. So I scheduled an in-person meeting to show them. Now, when I showed up at the meeting, someone representing the security department was there, and he asked about getting some additional features. Sure, I told him, I can do that. So I went back, wrote up a change request, and incorporated the additional features into the platform. I scheduled another meeting with Mark 1 for a couple of days later. When I got to that meeting, I noticed the audience had grown. There were 2 extra people from the finance department. Can you add feature X, feature Y, and feature Z? They asked. Sure, no problem. So I left, wrote up a CR, and added the features. A few days later, I met with them again. Imagine my surprise when the audience size had grown and the new attendees asked for more features. This went on for about 5 more rounds, and I was getting frustrated that I had spec'd out a 2-week project that was now taking months, and I wouldn't be paid until I delivered, and they accepted the final product. But I chugged along implementing all their change requests. But one day, the Mark I manager called me. Apparently, she had been speaking with other departments that weren't represented in her status meetings of ever-increasing mass. She gave me a list of dozens of new features they wanted, some of which would require a complete redesign of the core database and an overhaul of the UI. I had had enough. I told her, "This is a complete overhaul of the original spec. I'll have to redesign and rebuild this from the ground up." "Well, that's not my problem," she responded. "Well, actually it is. I'm not going to design and build an entirely new system until you pay me for the current one, built to the specs that we agreed on." After a short pause, she dropped a bomb on me. "Well, we're not going to renegotiate. You can consider this project canceled." "That's not how this works. You still have to pay me for the work I've done." "No, I don't. You haven't delivered anything. Sue me." And she hung up. Cue the malicious compliance. "Meet me at the courthouse." I took Mark I's manager's advice and went to the courthouse the next day to file a small claims court to recover $2,000 from Mark I. On my court date a couple of months later, I went down to the courthouse and was greeted by an arbitrator. In my state, they have court-appointed arbitrators meet the litigants when they arrive to see if the parties can sort out the case with an agreement to maximize the judge's time. The arbitrator asked me, "Is there anything you would agree to resolve this immediately?" I thought about it and said, "If they'll pay me 90%, $1,800 right now, I'll drop the suit." He then went into a slide room where the Mark I manager and the corporate lawyer were hanging out. I heard her screaming that they would rather pay it all or pay zero. The arbitrator came to me with the news, and I told him, "I heard, and I'm happy to take it all." He laughed and said no, they want to go to trial. Fast forward a couple of hours, and we're standing in front of a judge. I'm at my table alone, and the Mark I manager and lawyer are standing at the opposite table. The judge asked Mark I manager to tell her side first. She went into a very long speech about the project and corporate America and apple pie and all sorts of stuff. I stopped listening about 28 minutes ago. She talked non-stop for at least 30 minutes. Then the judge asked me for my story. Now, I wasn't maliciously ignoring Mark I manager's long-winded rant. I was actually formulating a strategy. I thought to myself, the judge probably had people who like to speechify in front of him all day, every day. I also thought he might appreciate a short and sweet story that got straight to the point and didn't waste his time. So I said, "Your Honor, they agreed to pay me $2,000 to design and build a software system for them. I completed the work based on the agreed specs, and then they decided to cancel the project after I was done." That was it. Then the judge asked me, "How do I know you did the work?" I had printed out the specs, change requests, documentation, and source code the night before. I lifted a ream of paper, 500 pages, from my table and offered it to the bailiff. "Here's the code I wrote for them, Your Honor." The bailiff came to take it from me, and the judge waved him off. "No need, I can see it from here." The judge then asked Mark I's manager, "Is this true?" She looked like she was in a daze. Yes." "Then I fined for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,000. About a month later, Mark I still hadn't paid. So I called the county sheriff and explained, sent him the court judgment documents, and he said, "No problem, they'll pay." The sheriff actually called me later that day. He was on a cell phone, and I could hear him talking to the Mark I manager. He told her, cut a check for $2,000 right now, or he was going to rip your computer out of the wall and auction them off until the judgment is satisfied. I don't know if he had that authority, but the sheriff seemed to have a grudge against Mark I, and he was reveling in the opportunity to dog them out. Apparently, Mark I believed he had the authority because, long story short, the sheriff had a $2,000 check in his hand about 15 minutes later, and it was in my mailbox about a week later. Am I the jerk for breaking up with my boyfriend over the orange peel theory? I was scrolling through TikTok when I saw a post about the orange peel theory, which, to sum it up, is when you ask another person to do a small task for you, like peeling an orange or asking them to tie your shoes for you. Both of these are tasks that you could do by yourself. The real test is how they respond to you. If they respond with, "You can do it yourself. Can't you do that?" I guess. Then they are not willing to do small tasks for you and will most likely fail to do larger tasks for you in the future. However, if they do it willingly or take the initiative to do it immediately, then they pass in a way. Now on to the situation. My boyfriend of 7 months was sitting on the couch when I saw the TikTok video explaining the theory, and I decided I should try it out. Up to this point, we were happy, but now looking back on it, I'm not surprised by how he responded. I asked him to tie my hair up for me, and he looked at me and asked me why I couldn't do it. At first, I thought that maybe he was intimidated by my long hair. However, he just had long hair in the past, so he knows how to tie it up. I asked him again, thinking it was just a fluke, but he told me that I could do it since I was in the kitchen and he needed to relax, stating he just got off work. I know what y'all are thinking. Let that man relax, he just got off. Y'all, he works from home. And even if he was truly tired, he has plenty of energy to play games and go out to the bar with his friends. Regardless, I honestly didn't want to break up and thought it was dumb to throw a relationship away over a TikTok. Well, that was until later in the day when I asked him if he could toss a towel in the dryer so I could be warm when I got out of the shower since I forgot to do it myself. Surprise, surprise, he never did it and just made me realize how much I do for him and his daughter that is not even mine. And I think I've fed, held, and changed her more than he has. So Reddit, I ask you, am I the jerk if I go through with this? Edit. I admit that I should not have taken advice from TikTok and that it showed immaturity to do so. However, I disagree on the fact that what happened wasn't a big deal. The method worked and made me see that I do a lot more for him than he does for me. Our relationship is not going to end because of my towel not being warm or my hair not being up, but because I realize that I'm just settling for a lazy man who doesn't take me out, doesn't help me out with his baby, and has no motivations in life except to live at his parents' house, play video games, and drink, all while taking advantage of what I do for him. In my mind, since we are so new, 7 months, these problems are foreshadowing what's to come, and I see no future with him or his baby. Update. First, I would like to thank you for how brutally honest the comments were. And no, I'm not 12, I'm 22. I would also like to clear up some things. First off, I didn't mean to make it seem like I was testing him like a crazy girlfriend who sets her boyfriend up for failure. I simply used the theory to see what he would do out of curiosity and came to the realization that I was giving 90% while he was giving 30% into the relationship. The theory helped me take off my rose-colored tinted glasses and truly see just how much I'm doing without an ounce of appreciation. As for the ones who are saying that they would also refuse the small tasks, this simply does not apply to me. If my partner asked me to tie his shoes, I would be down on one knee because I feel like it's a simple way to show love. Previously, I had never asked him to do something that I could do myself since I'm relatively independent. This was not the case for him since he uses me for almost everything. Babysitter while he goes out, nighttime nanny, chef, cleaner, washing machine, chauffeur, etc. As I took time to read the comments, there was a lot of reflecting and I knew I had to talk to him and give him a chance to work this imbalance out. I texted him and told him we needed to talk and he asked me for a ride to my house since his mom was out. I picked him up, but to my surprise, he had his baby. So I asked him if we could just stay in the driveway and talk. He told me that he was hoping we could talk on the way when I asked him on the way to what. He told me that his buddy wanted to meet up for drinks and I just lost it and told him to get out of my car. I just let out everything I was thinking and feeling. He looked very confused, but then he changed his tune and started blaming me, saying I was waiting too long to tell him this and that his daughter is already bonded to me. She's about 1. I'm not sure what to do. I went home and my phone was filled with messages from his mom saying I needed to step up and be a good mom and future wife. The thing is, I don't want to be either. Lastly, I know you guys don't like the orange peel theory, but I think I dodged a bullet. Or the ones who feel bad for him, he dodged a bullet. Relationships aren't always even, but OP was feeling like her emotional needs weren't being met. She took the next responsible step and made a plan to talk to her boyfriend about it. That's what you do when you have a problem. You sit down and talk about it. Even when you don't believe there will be a change, it's best to give them a chance. Unfortunately, while the boyfriend agreed to meet, it appears his plan was to pawn the baby off on her while he went out with a friend. Sorry, but when you schedule a time to talk about your relationship and the other party won't take that seriously, what are your options except call it quits? I'm not a fan of petty tests, but I'm a huge fan of the thinking of provoked and OP. Better to leave a bad relationship earlier rather than later. I think the hair tie test was stupid. I'd probably say no too. But the towel thing was the real test that she wasn't even trying, and that gave her the result she needed. She definitely dodged a bullet, but I think observation would have shown her the same thing. I mean, it does sound silly, but it totally paid off in this instance. He was just using her as a free babysitter. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Or ex-boyfriend? Please let us know. Hey Reddit boy, go get me a McFlurry. What's wrong? You forget how to drive or something? I knew you'd fail the orange peel test. I'm divorcing you. It's us or grad school. I used to work for a company that advertises knights, horses, and real weapons. If you know, you know. I was a follow spot operator. Basically, you point the big light at the horsey man to highlight them. The company didn't seem to like hiring extra people for that position, and in hindsight, the turnover rate was pretty high. Plus, pay was $10 an hour. This is all important. During my work there, I had major surgery, which had me out for 2 months, requiring quitting and hiring back. That never seemed to be an issue. A few months after that, I developed a pre-septic bacterial infection to a mild form of sepsis. My fever was 103, and my heart rate kept going up. I was sick. This necessitated me being out for a week. However, for some reason, I had to miss an extra night of work and forgot to call in, largely because my meds knocked me out. This was my bad. Again, important. At the same time, I'd been accepted into graduate school, and I had a class that met one Saturday a month. I was called into my boss's office to discuss the no-call, no-show. The conversation went as follows. Manager: "Hey, OP, you did a no-call, no-show. That's pretty bad." Me: "I'm sorry. I sent you an email and a doctor's note after, as soon as I could. I understand this is an issue, though." Manager: "Well, you've been written up for it, but that's not what's concerned me enough to call you in today." "Oh?" "You're asking for a Saturday off every month. That's our highest attendance day. We can't do that." Me: "I thought with enough advance notice, you could schedule around me." Manager: "See, that's just the problem. We've had to constantly lean into your needs, and now it's time for you to consider our needs and your team's needs." "What are you saying?" "It's either us or this class." "I need this class for full-time attendance. I can't drop it." Manager smugly: "Well, I guess we'll just have to see where we are in 2 months." "Okay." I left his office and told my coworkers that I liked goodbye. Then I clocked out. He comes storming out to my truck, screaming at me, asking how I could quit on him like that. I told him he wanted me to choose between grad school or this rinky-dink job, and I made my decision. I then took off the costume belt and handed it to him, saying I'd bring the rest back when I had time. A week later, I got my first real stagehand job that paid $20 an hour. So yeah, forget you, dude. I have a master's now, and I'm set to start teaching at colleges this next semester, and I'm a pro stagehand. Never give your employees crappy ultimatums. Am I the jerk for saying that my sister should follow my parents' suggestion when it comes to her wedding on Thursday? My sister is getting married. The wedding is on Thursday, the 23rd, and instead of doing a big traditional affair, her and her fiance opted out of all of the normal wedding things. They're going to the registry office to sign the papers, and then they're going out to dinner. They chose Thursday because they both have the day off. They work in a hospital, and they don't always have weekends off. They invited me, my parents, my brother, and her fiance's dad to witness them signing the papers and to eat dinner with them because they both have to work the following day. We all think this is a great idea, and we're happy for them. There's just one thing my parents suggested. My brother struggles with time blindness. It's debilitating to him. Even if he sets alarms or reminders to take medication for ADHD, it still affects his life. It has also affected his jobs and his relationships. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you how much it affects him. He's currently out of work because of it, and he's missed things such as flights, sporting events, and other life events because of it. I cannot stress how debilitating it is for him, even if he has someone there reminding him and trying to get him out the door on time. Here's the issue. The registry office is so busy that you're required to make an appointment. You cannot just walk in. It's the same for the place my sister and her fiance want to have dinner at. A reservation is required. Knowing that my brother has trouble because of his time blindness, my parents suggested that instead of going to that particular registry office and that particular place for lunch, my sister and her fiance should instead go to a different registry office. It is not far away or anything, and this one does not require appointments. It allows walk-ins. There are also many restaurants near the registry office, and none of them require reservations. This way, we wouldn't have to miss their appointments because of my brother. It would work out for everyone. I thought it was a good idea. However, my sister was incensed when my parents brought it up. Even though the other registry office is only one village over and going there would not change anything, she said that she won't allow our brother's issues to dictate that day. Further, she said that rather than missing the appointment, if my brother was late, they would go on ahead, and if he misses it, that's not her problem. I couldn't believe or understand why she was so incensed, and neither could my parents. I thought their suggestion was a good idea. It would allow my sister to get married on Thursday, like she wants to, without my brother's issues causing the appointment to be missed. Am I the jerk? I ask because I genuinely thought my parents made a good suggestion that would work well for everyone. You're the jerk. Unless your brother is made of liquid or gas, he can be physically brought to this event by another family member. If this is a true disability for him, he needs extra assistance from a designated family member to assist him. Not for the entire event to be rearranged, which would still not actually solve the issue. Just because the alternative office and restaurant allow walk-ins still does not prevent him from forgetting the event altogether or still turning up ridiculously late and making everyone wait potentially hours. This is 100% not a solution in any sense. My fiance is gone for the weekend and I'm enjoying myself too much. I'm 25 female. My fiance, 23 male, left a few days ago for a job. We both work in creative industries and tend to work on short-term contracts, as well as bartending on the weekends to keep money consistent. We've been living together for almost 2 years. He's left before to visit family, but this time I was excited for him to leave. Usually I feel bad when he goes because I feel like I'll miss him. Last year he had a really stressful contract. During that time I picked up some extra household chores, and since then we've argued about them. I didn't mind doing them throughout the project, but we already have difficulty dividing household chores. I take a long time to do them, and I can't tell if it's because I'm a perfectionist who cleans every inch of something once I start, or if it's because I'm not getting as much help as I'm being told I am. I feel like I've always been calling out for help. I ask for us to do it, and I get an attitude, a list of other things he has to do, like work, when we work the same jobs, and a time limit. It's not a set time limit, but his helpfulness has a battery and it gets low quickly. Even when he does a task, it's also done slow and not a good job. I have to go and tweak the work he does. We don't have the same definition of clean. His is that everything looks clean, and mine is that every inch, even the ones we don't see, should be clean. We live in a historic building, and I'm not risking bugs. Sorry. We made slight peace with it before he left. Slight. Then he actually left. I danced in the living room. I sang in the kitchen. I finished a project. I cooked myself an awesome dinner. I tidied up all of my spaces to enjoy. I went to work. I came home. It was still clean, and I danced and sang all over again. I woke up the next day, and to make a long story short, lived my best life. I'm having a blast. Then he called me to tell me how much he missed me, and I felt so weird. I'm not painting him in the best light in this story, but he truly is my best friend, my heart, my boo bear. It's not that I don't want to be with him. I'm just enjoying my own company so much that I don't miss him. He's so kind and loving, and I love him, but not being able to reciprocate that feeling left me feeling weird, and then a little resentful about the cleaning stuff. I don't want to have more fun without him. I don't want to feel relieved when he leaves, because it means I'll actually get something done. Is this fixable? It's been on and off for 2 years, this cleaning thing, but me not missing him when he's gone, I'm scared. Having some space is healthy every now and then in a relationship. You don't need to be so hard on yourself for enjoying time apart. Maybe have an open and honest conversation about your feelings when he gets back. Not saying, I didn't miss you, but saying, it felt really good to walk into a clean home. This is something I've realized is important to me. What can we do to compromise? You are perfectly entitled to some me time when in a relationship. It's perfectly normal. Don't feel guilty about it. Well, what do you think? Should OP stay with her boyfriend or not? Please let us know. When you're a very clean person, but you live with a partner who doesn't have the same standards as you do, it can feel amazing once they're finally gone. Am I the jerk for telling my sister to not come back to my home because of her unruly kids? Yesterday was my birthday. My sister came in from New York to spend the weekend with me and brought her kids along. I'm not big on birthdays, but I figured I'd do something small and at least spend time with my family. My sister arrived Friday night with the intention of spending the weekend. I live on the 3rd floor. Her kids woke up at 6 a.m. Saturday morning and were running in my small 3-bedroom apartment. She also has 2 teenagers who left my bathroom messy and out of order. They were also leaving lights on, turning on the heat without notifying me, running up the light and electric bill. I gently pointed these things out to her and told her that we're on the 3rd floor, and out of respect for the neighbors downstairs, we should try to keep things quiet. I should point out that I have no kids and enjoy this aspect about my life. I don't hate them or anything, and I enjoy being around them in my family, but I do get annoyed when kids are unruly and disrespectful, related or not. Anyways, she packed her things and made it seem like we were all good. Said she was staying at my other sister's house and coming back the following day so that we can celebrate my birthday on Sunday. She gave me no indication that she was upset about anything I said or did during her time here. The next day, I get a measly HBD text, and she was a no-show. She did not come to my home and left back to New York from my sister's home. I responded, thank you, but then later found out that she was upset that I asked her to control her kids while in my home. My mother eventually told me why she was a no-show for my actual birthday the following day, and I texted her and let her know that moving forward, when she comes into town, that she should stay at my sister's. She tried to act like she was unaware about what was going on, but I couldn't really give a hoot. The damage was done. Am I in the wrong for asking her to rein in her kids while they're in my home? I ended up spending my birthday alone with zero family, all because of a misunderstanding. Maybe it was deserved. Edit. The kids are aged 13, 14, and 3. The 3-year-old is very rambunctious, while 13 and 14 are always on their phones and leave messes everywhere they go. I could tell whether they were in a room or not after they left the room, depending on the condition of said room. The other sister's 2-year-old was also there. My neighbor just came in from a work trip Friday night and was most likely jet-lagged and tired. I wanted to be respectful of that. I just moved in on the 1st of November, and I'm broke and on a tight budget. Not the jerk. I'm surprised your other relatives weren't more sympathetic, but then my mother would have wasted no time in disciplining those kids. In this home, we don't behave that way. Sister sounds like one of those oblivious parents who thinks her kids can do no wrong. And it sounds like you live in an apartment, so yes, minding the noise level is important. I've seen queries in this forum about neighbors with noisy visiting kids. Sorry your family wasn't more supportive. Why didn't other family members attend your gathering? But now you know that the notion of a family only extends so far. Not the jerk, and happy birthday. My Karen sister demands I adopt her kids. My sister, 31 female, was recently diagnosed with brainstem glioma. Apparently it's big and untreatable due to the location. I'm not sure how long she has, but most likely it will shorten her lifespan by a significant amount. Apparently, she's already experiencing some bad symptoms. My sister has 3 kids, a newborn and a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. She asked me to take them once she passes on. No, we don't have family, and her ex-husband wants nothing to do with the kids since she had cheated on him for years with many men and they aren't his. She doesn't know who the dad is. Personally, I, 25 female, am child-free. My husband, 25 male, is child-free as well. I told her no for the following reasons. 1. Since we are both child-free, it would be unfair to ask my husband to make this kind of sacrifice. We both agreed to no kids when we got married. To change something like that generally means a divorce. 2. I am atheist. My sister wants me to raise them religious and to know God and take them to church. No. 3. I live in a different country where English is not the primary language. I can't teach a 6-year-old a new language when they don't know English well. 4. 6-year age gap means we didn't really grow up together, and the memories I do have, she was always awful to me, like cynical. And after she moved out at 18, we haven't talked once besides at my parents' funeral. I don't even know her kids, let alone her. She cried and called me awful, but it's my life, and ultimately I get to be selfish with it. A kid isn't an 18-year commitment, it's lifelong, and one I have decided not to take. She cheated with multiple different men and lost her husband. I don't think it's my job to swoop in and save her from consequences of her own actions. I don't feel like I owe her anything. Other people disagree. Friends of hers, whom I've never met, have been reaching out to me and calling me at all hours to leave nasty voicemails, saying I need to step up as a sister, but I just feel like she's trying to use me as her ticket out to passing and not feeling guilty. I'm going to edit so I don't have to continue to say this. I have offered to pay for DNA kits and anything else she needs to help find the fathers of these kids. She doesn't want to. Last edit. I will not be taking in the kids. It's not because I want to teach my sister a lesson or because they are less than for being a product of an affair. I brought it up because I know everyone would ask, where's the father? It's because my sister is a stranger. I haven't talked to her in over 10 years. I've never met her or her kids, and I don't want kids. My husband, yes, we talked, would leave. Realistically, it wouldn't work out. With his income, I wouldn't be able to afford the kids anyways. I'm child-free, not just because I'm selfish, like so many of you suggest, but because I have mental health issues that would prevent me from ever being a good parent. I have OCD. Not like I keep my house clean OCD, but where I need to shut a door several times until it's completely shut, or noises like dripping water drives me insane. Imagine having a newborn when sounds can drive you mentally insane. It's debilitating. My sister didn't deserve to pass on, and her kids don't deserve their fate. But realistically, their unbiological father is the one who needs to step up, not me. To those of you who said I'm the jerk, but then let me ask you, why aren't you adopting? Why aren't you fostering? Why aren't you making sure you get kids out of the system? Get off your high horse. Not the jerk. I feel bad for your sister, but now is the time to buy some ancestry DNA kits in order to search for those kids' fathers. And for the people messaging OP to step up and take the kids in if they really cared. It seems like our friends should be better candidates than an estranged sister who has no relationship with the kids. But then again, their friends would rather be flying monkeys than to step up. So, your sister is religious, but cheated on her husband and has 3 different baby daddies? How does that work? Not the jerk. You aren't obligated to take on parenting kids for any reason. The rest of the vitriol in this post was pretty unnecessary. That said, regardless of how you feel about your sister, she is a mother who's passing on and is trying to deal with all that entails, and also making sure her kids will be cared for. I don't think that has anything to do with guilt and everything to do with doing what any mother would do in this situation. Not the jerk. You didn't sign up to take on her kids. My husband and I are child-free, but we have godchildren that would be entrusted to us if anything happened to their parents. We chose that, but if we hadn't, there is no way we would just agree to it. Just because you're family doesn't mean you're obligated to do anything for anyone. If you do something, it should be because you chose to. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his sister? Please let us know. My husband stole $6,000 from my account to spend on golf clubs. I'm a nurse and have been working more hours for the past 6 months to be able to save money to fix the ceiling in our house. I've saved up $8,000 in my account, and since my husband hasn't worked since 2020, I'm trying to balance rent and utility payments. My husband is a golf enthusiast, and so are his friends. Only difference is that all of his friends are well off, and they can afford expensive golfing gear and trips. They mentioned wanting to go on a golfing trip next week and invited my husband, but he initially refused. Though he really wanted to go, but complained about how his friends bought fancy new golfing gear, while all he has is his old gear. He asked if I could lend him $6,000 so he could buy a set of golfing clubs, but I refused because $6,000 for a set of clubs is crazy expensive, especially for someone who doesn't work. He got upset and accused me of holding his employment over his head when he couldn't help it. Anyway, I thought we were over this argument, but I had discovered that he had pulled the $6,000 out of my account and purchased the set behind my back. I went home and exploded on him. He swore he'd return the money once he gets home from the trip, but I told him he had no right to take the money and spend it on a set of golf clubs while the ceiling needs fixing. He said the ceiling doesn't require $6,000 either, but the kid's room was affected too. I demanded that he return the set or pay me the $6,000 right then and there. He told me I was being unfair to him and that he's feeling stuck because his friends can afford to buy whatever, while he's being yelled at for wanting something for himself for once. I told him to get a job and buy himself whatever. He tried to tell me he'll pay me when he finds a job, which is after he gets back from his trip, but I refused. He kept begging me to let him just go on the trip and we'll figure it out later on, but I said no. If it wasn't for something as important as the ceiling, I would have maybe waited, but he's saying that I'm controlling of his life. Edit. First of all, I'm getting too many comments. I'm too overwhelmed to respond. People that are suggesting I return the clubs myself, I can't because he never brought them to the house. I've never seen them and I don't know where he's hiding them. I suspect his brother's house, but I'm on really bad terms with him and can't go to his house. So the argument now is just him pushing to get me to stay quiet until he gets back from the trip, but I'm putting my foot down and refusing. Not the jerk. This is a massive red flag. He stole from you. $6,000 is a lot of money, and if he's not working, how on earth is he going to pay you back? The fact that you're working your butt off to repair the ceiling, which is a major need, and he thinks that golf clubs are far more urgent than home repairs, really shows how childish he is. By her picking up even more shifts at work, probably. I can't get over how much of a jerk this guy is. He stole the $6,000 from OP's account. Yep, if it's not a joint account, then OP needs to report this to the bank and police, kick the deadbeat out, and let him face the consequences. She needs to set up a new account for herself at a different bank. Then she needs to refuse to pay for his greens fees and pretty much all recreational activities out of her paycheck. By the way, how's he paying for his golf trip? He's going to be complaining about her the whole time he's away. Finally, she needs to talk to a trusted counselor, friend, minister, or colleague and inquire if they think divorce is a reasonable course of action. Not the jerk. Please get yourself a divorce attorney ASAP. Your husband hasn't worked in 2 years and thinks $6,000 golf clubs are a reasonable purchase? That alone makes me deeply question his judgment. But the fact that he then stole your money to buy them is beyond the pale. This man is a selfish, unemployed, when literally everyone is hiring, thief, and you clearly can't trust him or his judgment. Lawyer up and get this jerk out of your life. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Tell homeboy he might want to try another sport. Golf probably is not the best idea for a broke deadbeat. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.